Joined.
All right, everyone. I'm just going to give it one more moment just to make sure we are all on the line. So I'm just going to wait one more moment.
Joined.
All right, everyone. So I'll just going to start going through, I guess, the roll call. So we'll start out with welcoming everyone to our meeting of June 8th. This meeting is being recorded. I ask and remind everyone to put yourselves on mute. For each item, we will go through a roll call to find out if you have any questions or comments. If you do not have any questions or comments, please do state so, because I do not want to assume. Please state if you do not have any comments, because I do not want to assume that you just were not able to unmute yourself. And with that, I will start with roll call. Do we have Trustee Archer?
Here.
Trustee Bingham?
Present.
Trustee Buck?
Present.
Trustee Danko?
Present.
Trustee Deese?
Present.
Trustee Galindo?
Present, thank you.
Trustee Miller?
Present, thank you.
Trustee Mulholland?
Present.
Trustee Paken-Miller?
Yes, I'm here.
Trustee Tutt?
I'm here as well, thank you.
Student Trustee Meddy?
I'm here.
Student Trustee Prozik?
Present, thanks.
And also this evening we have on the call is our Director, Figueredo, the Executive Council, as well as our Trustee Liaison Officer, Heather Miller. So with that, we will now turn to the HWDSB land acknowledgement. The Hamilton Wentworth District School Board acknowledges our presence on the ancestral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacy land as determined by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt represents the treaty relationship between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and Anishinaabe with respect to sharing the land and resources thereon. The intent of this agreement is for all nations sharing this territory to do so responsibly, respectfully, and sustainably in perpetuity. We respect the long-standing relationships with the local Indigenous communities, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Six Nations of the Grand River. And now we will play the Play O Canada.
joined.
And that concludes the Canada. We'll now turn to item number 3. And item number 3 is farewell to our student trustees, Medi and Prozic. And I'd like to start with stating that this is not the farewell that we certainly imagined. And we are very sad to see you go. Both of you have had a tremendous impact on the board. Student trustee Prozic, who has been here with us for 2 years, and student trustee Medi, who joined us in the fall of 2019. Your words have had enormous impact on not only at our board meetings, but also our committee meetings. Our student trustees have joined us at all of our various board meetings, including Audit. And we have also, I'll just remind folks to put yourself on mute. Trustees, just a reminder to put yourselves on mute. And so returning back now to the farewell to the student trustees. You've also had an impact on the structure, and our student trustees have also had an impact on student senate, to our students across the system, as well as students across Ontario, as both of them have been heavily involved with OSTA ACO. With that, I would now like to turn to first to Trustee Galindo to offer some words as the student trustee mentor. Trustee Galindo.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yes, certainly out of the ordinary for what would normally be the farewell address to our student trustees. I have a few short comments to make, and by all means, it certainly doesn't do justice to the amount of work and contributions that they have both done to our school board in the last year, and in student trustee Prozic's case, the last 2 years. When we talk about the value and importance of student voice at the table and having young people be part of the decisions that we make on all matters and topics, student trustees Medi and Prozic are the prime examples of what we would hope student leadership would look like at this level. I think that they have continued to set the bar high, and I'm sad to see them go, but know that they are off to great things in life, and of course, I think I speak on behalf of most, if not all, my colleagues when I say that we wish them all the best in their future endeavors, and we hope that their experience as student trustees at the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board will remain with them for time to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Galindo. I'll now go through the regular roll call to ask other trustees if you have comments of farewell to our 2 student trustees. Trustee Archer?
I wanted to say thank you and congratulations in your future. And Cam, thank you for taking the time to come in and talk to the kids at Mountain Kids Club. They really enjoyed that. Take care.
Trustee Bingham?
And how do you say goodbye to amazing, amazing young people, but knowing that you are heading forward in your world and your next part of your journey makes it a little bit easier to let you go. But you have brought an amazing amount of insight. You have, yes, set the bar higher again from the last student trustees who were here. And I know that you are pushing that bar for the next student trustees coming in to make it even higher. And I thank you for it. You have been amazing. And yes, it is hard to say goodbye to you, even though we know that you're still in the city. Somewhere we will track you down. And take care and enjoy everything that you are about to experience on the next part of your journey.
Trustee Danko?
Thank you, and through the chair, I just wanted to say to student trustees, Prozik and Mehdi, that it has been an absolute privilege to work with you and to get to know you both. I'm so proud of the work that you've done, not only in our board, but beyond. And I think Trustee Galindo said it perfectly when he said that when we think of student leadership, this is what we'd like it to look like. So thank you, wish you all the best, and I hope you'll stay in touch and let us know how you're doing in your future endeavors.
Trustee Dees?
I think a lot of the sentiments have been said. I miss both of you. I miss sitting next to you at the boardroom table, your insight, and as Trustee Galindo has said, you are both exceptional student leaders, and your leadership has been incredible, and we can't thank you enough, and your voice, but all you bring to the table. And I'm saddened that we're not here with you to be able to say goodbye in person. One of the real sad outcomes of all this, but as with the others, wish you incredibly best of luck, and please don't lose touch and let us know how it goes. And we have no doubt, or I have no doubt, that you're in for great things. Thank you for all you do.
Trustee Miller?
Hi. I will obviously want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues here. It has been incredible to watch you both show such leadership, such eloquence, no matter what the topic. I don't think I've ever seen either one of you show up unprepared to anything. And I want to say a true thank you to both of you, because there have been many times when I've sat in board or in camera, and you both have asked questions that completely floored me. So I appreciate very much your point of view, and both of you challenging us across the table, and it's been extremely important to have your voices at the table, and we are so much better for it. Also, just commend you on your incredible work with Student Senate specifically. I got a quick chance to watch you both in action one night after one of our committee sessions had let out early, and you are both a sight to see when you are on. So thank you for sharing that talent with us, and just continue to go forward and do exactly what you're doing. Keep asking the hard questions. You two are an incredible asset to wherever you go. Thank you so much for everything.
Trustee Mulholland?
Nothing else to thank you.
Trustee Paikin-Miller?
Just echoing what's been said already, and the reality is that I can't even believe what student trustees can contribute to a group like the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. Their contributions have been wonderful, and I find that when I listen to them, I learn. And that's something for me, because I always feel that we learn from each other. So good luck in your future endeavors, and I hope you'll stay in touch and we'll see you again. Thanks.
Trustee Tutt?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just want to echo some of the same sentiments shared by my colleagues. I think they've really captured these two brilliant individuals' kind of stay or career with this board. And I just want to add that I think it's important to note that some of the most thought-provoking and probing questions have come from these two individuals, which is just absolutely amazing. And, I learned a lot. I think my colleagues would agree that they've learned a lot from some of the questions that they asked. And as someone who's in the business of asking questions that are stable, I just want to say thank you for, doing that and contributing to the overall discussion. And I think our board is better for it. I think our student population, community is better for it, better by your service. And I'm sure that this is just one stop on your journey. And one day, many of us will pick up the paper or be reading online and be hearing about more great things that you guys are doing and greatness that you've achieved. So thank you, congratulations, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you.
Trustee Buck?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say I don't remember being a teenager and knowing other people my age that were as wise as the quality of students we have come to sit around the table with us. Your questions are thought-provoking, and sometimes they're uncomfortable, and you know what? That we're the better for it. So thank you for giving us your wisdom, and I look forward to seeing what's next for you and all the places you'll go.
And I just want to quickly mention, too, that it is because of our student trustee Mehdi and student trustee Prozik that we are adding a third student trustee to our table starting next year, our Indigenous student trustee. And that was truly thanks to the advocacy and work that Cameron and Hona engaged in. And I'll also note that we will be inviting both of our student trustees back to the boardroom in the fall when it's safe for us to gather again and to receive an award as is tradition when we have when we're saying farewell to our student trustees. I'd also like to turn to Dr. Figueredo if you would like to offer some comments to the two student trustees on behalf of staff.
So thank you through the chair. To Cam and Ahona, I'll start with Cam. For the last 2 years, on behalf of the Executive Council, it's been a pleasure to see you contribute, not only to the boardroom, but to Student Senate. And I've never seen student voice from a system level gather so much momentum. So thank you, and thank you for your constant strategic thinking at the table. Ahona, your strong leadership, your strong equity lens, your thoughtful approach as you ask questions to hold us accountable to make sure we're not missing the voices of those we're not hearing. So again, thank you both. And I'll close with this in the famous words most trustees know of Dr. Seuss, "Oh, the places you'll go. Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. You will be missed, and thank you on behalf of all staff."
And I now I am going to turn to our student trustees, and if you'd like to add any, I guess, comments back. And I know if you could also share your future plans for next year and just let trustees know where you are headed. Student trustee Mehdi?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, everyone, for the really kind words. It's been a real privilege to be working with all of you. You've all taught me something different, and I'm very, very thankful for that. So thank you for everything. And so next year, I'm going to be heading off to the University of Ottawa, and I'll be studying ethics and political philosophy, and hopefully going into law after that.
That sounds very exciting, and thank you, student trustee Mehdi. Student trustee Prozik.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bittersweet moment here. You know, it's inevitable, and we all knew it was coming. It just kind of snuck up on me faster than I thought it would. I'd just like to take a second to thank everyone that made my term amazing. I mean, first off, to everyone around the table, well, hypothetical table, and everyone in the room. I've seen incredible work done by all of you. You're all amazing people with incredible intentions, so just keep up what you're doing, and, you know, I leave the board in full confidence that, you know, it'll continue the amazing work it's doing. I'd also like to thank all of our student senators between now and last year. We had 2 amazing senates, and I got really lucky, I guess. Ahona and I got really lucky this year, and Tara and I got really lucky last year with our batch of senators. They've all been absolutely amazing, and they've contributed so much. And, I mean, they continue to amaze Ahona and I, and they amaze Tara and I throughout the years. So, you know, they really kind of contributed to who we are kind of in our role and what we say around the table, right? So they're just as responsible for our success as we are, which is amazing. And, you know, I couldn't have asked to work with a better group of kids for our Student Senate. So thank you all so much. And thank you all for the kind words. I'll be heading to McMaster University next year for life sciences. So I'm excited to do that. Hopefully I'll be specializing into a program, a psychology program, but we'll see where that goes. But thank you all so much for an amazing year. I've learned so much from each and every one of you. I've enjoyed getting to know each and every one of you so much, and I'm sure I'll keep in touch. This isn't the last you'll hear of me. I'll probably be sending delegations to board meetings whenever I see something off, so stay tuned for me.
Well, Student Trustee Prozik and Ahona, we look forward to receiving those future delegations. You're certainly always welcome at the Board of Education. So with that, we will continue to move through the agenda. And so we'll go through approval of the agenda. I will, as always, list off 2 individuals to motion and second an agenda item. It does not mean that you are in favor of it. It's just to have the item on the floor. So the first agenda item is approval of the agenda. I'll have that put forward by Trustee Archer, seconded by Trustee Bingham. And do we have anyone dissenting against approval of the agenda? Hearing none, the motion passes, and we will now move on to item number 5, declaration of conflict of interest. And I did not receive any written correspondence prior to the meeting. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest? Hearing none, we will continue to move through the agenda. Item 6, confirmation of minutes from May 25th, 2020. And I'll give trustees a few moments to look through the minutes, and I'll just ask, does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns, or items for clarification with regards to item 6, confirmation of minutes? Hearing none, we will continue to move through the agenda on to reports. Item 7, policy from May 20th, 2020, and I'll turn to Trustee Galindo to bring forward the policy report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my honor as Chair of Policy Committee to bring forward the committee report from the meeting that took place on May 20th, 2020. This was the first policy committee that we held via teleconference since the start of the pandemic. Now, of the meeting, we did have 2 action items, which I will discuss, and 1 monitoring item. So the 2 action items we need trustees to confirm at the end of this report. So the first item is the occupational health and safety policy. The committee considered that policy as it was up for its annual review. This policy outlines the obligations to provide and maintain a safe and healthy work environment. Minor changes were made to the purpose statement as well as to language in the intended outcomes. This policy was reviewed by the Joint Health and Safety Committee as well as union partners. On the motion of Trustee Danko, the Policy Committee recommends that the occupational health and safety policy be approved. Action item B, very similar, workplace violence and harassment prevention policy. The committee also reviewed that policy as it was also up for its annual review. The policy outlines the obligations to the prevention of workplace violence and harassment under legislation. Minor changes were made to the guiding principles and intended outcomes, as well as clarification on language for the assessment section of progress indicators. This policy was also reviewed by the Joint Health and Safety Committee, as well as union partners. On the motion of Trustee Miller, the policy also recommends that the workplace violence and harassment prevention policy be approved. Finally, there was a discussion on an update that staff provided on procedures under communication and community engagement and human resources policies. Under the communication and community engagement pillar of that policy, item 1.2 procedure, we did have a discussion on that provided clarification, and that was the end of that discussion there. This concludes the policy committee report that I'm bringing forward to trustees. I'm open to take any questions that trustees may have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Galindo, and I'll have the motion to approve the report seconded by Trustee Buck. So I'll now go through a roll call for questions or comments. When you do go to speak towards an item, I ask that you just state if you're speaking towards item A, B, or C. So with that, I'll go to roll call. And we will go backwards today. Student Trustee Prozic, do you have any comments or questions on the policy report?
Yeah, I just have one question. Trustee Galindo had mentioned that both the occupational health and safety policy and the workplace violence and harassment policy had gone through a feedback session with both our union partners and the Joint Health and Safety Committee. I was just wondering what the feedback raised on that policy was and whether or not it was implemented in the policy.
So I will turn these questions to Executive Director Peter Sovereign.
Thank you, and through the chair, I'm actually going to forward this question to Superintendent Nunn.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you for the question. One of the major changes within this policy as part of our annual review this year was changing the definition of an employee to worker. And so throughout both of the policies, we've captured worker as it is defined within the provincial occupational health and safety, within the Occupational Health and Safety Act. That was the one of the major changes that we had received from our union partners when we provided 2 opportunities through our monthly meetings for feedback.
Student Trustee Prozic.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to hear that that was implemented, and obviously the health and safety and the satisfaction of our staff always reflect onto our students, right? So making sure our staff have a safe environment, so our students can have the same. So thank you so much for the work you've done.
Student Trustee Meddy.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Trustee Tutt.
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Paikin-Miller.
No, I have no questions. Thanks.
Trustee Mulholland.
No questions.
Trustee Miller.
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Galindo, did you have any comments? I know you brought forward the report, but did you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't. Thank you, though, for checking in.
Trustee Deep.
Just one question in regards to item B, workplace violence and harassment prevention. Do we capture, I know we capture incidents, so I'm just wondering if we break them down under harassment as to what they are. So I'm just broken down by, are they happening race, religion, just wondering if we're capturing that, what types of incidents they are under that.
I'll turn to Superintendent Nunn.
And through the chair, we do not break incidences down within those categories.
Trustee Deep, further comment or question?
I'm just wondering, I guess with everything that's going on, and as we're talking about, racial incidents now, I'm just wondering whether that would be something that would be worth breaking it down into categories so we can better see what is happening within our board, what type of harassment is happening.
Superintendent Nunn?
And through your chair, as part of our annual reporting to the Central Joint Health and Safety, we bring forward our violent incident reports for incidents within our schools or system programs. As such, we do not do not bring forward incidents reported on workplace violence or harassment. Those will be separate. That would be a separate process that employees have the opportunity to work through the procedure relative to the workplace violence and harassment prevention policy. The actual number of incidences that may be reported by staff and the process that we follow within human resources, we would not respectfully bring that data forward to the Occupational Health and Safety Committee.
Trustee Dees?
Okay, I understand that. I'm just wondering, Anne, I think for our own board understanding, and I think, I compare it to some of the other areas where we've broken down, even suspensions and expulsions to really help us better understand the data. So I think that's where I'm coming from with this. As we sort of, and I'm assuming there's training, obviously, in all that we do around harassment. So I'm just wondering, that's where I'm thinking more for us to better understand. But this is something I would think then through the chair that we would table back in HR. Would that be correct? So I have Director Figueredo has a response.
So thank you through the chair, and thank you, Trustee Dees, for the question. So you're right in terms of as we work through we'll provide more information next week. As we work through our student census data, that's the type of data we're trying to disaggregate around our students. This policy is around staff-to-staff or situations in terms of that we manage. We can take that away for discussion at the HR committee to see in terms of what is best practice around disaggregating data in this category when it is situations when it's regarding staff and not students.
Trustee Dees, any further?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Danko.
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Buck.
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Bingham.
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Archer.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, so on the motion to approve the report, the motion of Trustee Galindo, seconded by Trustee Buck. Do we have anyone voting against? Hearing none, the report does pass. And with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, Finance and Facilities Report from May 21st. Trustee Danko, can you please bring forward the report?
Thank you. And so through the chair, I'm happy to bring the Finance and Facilities Committee report from May 21st. You'll see that we have a number of monitoring items before you on the report. And of course, as always, that's on page 8-1 of our package. And as always, additional details are available in the Finance and Facilities package from that date, which was sent out by Trustee Officer Miller. Our first item, item A, is our interim financial report as of April 30th, 2020. So that is basically our financial status report as of April 30th of this year. And staff look at our budget projections and actual trends, and they review those to forecast our August 31st year-end position from a financial, staffing, and enrollment perspective. At this point, the report shows that we are projecting a surplus of $2.15 million for the 2019-2020 school year, and that's due to a combination of savings from job action throughout the year as well as the school closures in mid-March due to the ministerial order. Item B is our enrollment summary. You'll notice every year we come with a March 31st and an October 31st reporting of our average daily enrollment, as that is the basis for our grant for student needs. So we have the two count dates. We received the actual enrollment numbers as of March 31st, and you'll see that as on a school-by-school basis in the chart that was provided in the Finance and Facilities report. The good news is that enrollment is higher than projected in both of our elementary and secondary panels. Item C is our long-term facilities master plan update. The long-term facilities master plan is really what helps us meet our mandate to provide equitable, affordable, and sustainable learning facilities for students. It is a fluid document. It has embedded links to websites and reports that are updated on a regular basis so that the information in the long-term facilities master plan is always current. There are 3 different sections for the report or the master plan, and those reflect the 3 divisions for the Facilities Management Department. And I'll just note that trustees that are committee members acknowledge the amount of work and the amount of information detail that's included in the Long-Term Facilities Master Plan, and we thank staff for their efforts at maintaining that document. Lastly, we had the school renewal report, and that is a strategic directions report that we see regularly. Trustees might remember that in 2018-19 and 2019-20, we identified one target for the school renewal plan, and that was that at least 25% fewer schools will be identified as being in poor condition by 2020. And staff reviewed the different strategies they've undertaken to achieve this target. I want to note that that target was identified back in 2016 when we had 21 schools identified as being in poor condition. Last year, there were 18 schools identified in poor condition, but staff are actually on track to exceed the target. So with closures that are happening, with renovation updates that are happening, and once we have the FCI, the Facilities Condition Index data, updated from the ministry, we expect that we will be down to 10 schools or fewer that are in poor condition, which is a greater than 50% decrease in the number of schools reported as poor, which is great news. So thank you to staff for the excellent work done over the last few years. The last item is our 2020-2021 budget development, and so trustees will note that as of this meeting in May, we had not received the grant for student needs information. It had not been released by the ministry, but we have heard and are anticipating that there will not be any significant changes to the GSN, so it should have minimal impact on our preliminary budget for the next school year. We are still working towards meeting the June 30th budget deadline for submission to the ministry, and I will remind trustees that there will be the final budget presentation based on our current assumptions at Finance and Facilities tomorrow night, and all trustees are invited to attend. With that, I would like to move the report.
Thank you, Trustee Danko, and we'll have the finance report seconded by Trustee Tutt. With that, I will now move through roll call. So we'll start with Trustee Archer.
No questions at this time, thank you.
Trustee Bingham.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Buck.
No questions, but I did want to say thank you to Stacey and her team. Really, that we're making great strides in improving a lot of our schools. We're getting away from that poor condition rating for enough of them, and yeah, that's really encouraging. And I know that it's kind of an uphill battle working with a ministry right now that is not approving projects, so we can continue to improve those numbers. But yeah, they're working hard, and I think that it's self-evident. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Deese.
Thank you. Just one question. Item A, we carry forward that surplus of $2.15 million, correct?
I'll turn to Superintendent Zucker.
Thank you, and through the chair, that is correct. So when we do our final financial statements at the end of the year, so at August 31st, and we present them in November, at that time we will know our exact financial position. And in the past, we've just added it to our accumulated surplus, which is now over $10 million. So once we're over the 10 million mark that we had to have for the province, we would look to trustees to give us direction on, are there any certain things that we should be putting this aside for? So we should have a general sort of rainy day in case things like a pandemic come up and we may have expenses that we aren't funded for. But we also want to make sure that if there are any special projects that we're doing, that we have that money set aside in order to do them.
Trustee Deep, do you have further comments at all?
No, that's great. Thank you.
And for Trustee Danko, I know you brought forward the report, but did you have any comments?
No comments, and Associate Director Zucker covered that perfectly.
Thank you. Trustee Galindo?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Trustee Miller?
Trustee Dees covered my question, so I think I'm clear on this. Thank you so much to staff for prepping everything.
Thank you. Trustee Mulholland?
No comment.
Trustee Paikin-Miller?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Tutt?
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Meddy?
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Prozic?
No questions, thanks.
All right, thank you, trustees. So on the motion to receive the report, as there was no action items, by Trustee Danko, seconded by Trustee Tutt, is there anyone voting against? Hearing none, the report does pass. Moving along to our next item, audit, and we will turn to Trustee Bingham to bring forward the report from May 28th.
Thank you. Yeah, so on May 28th, we have, from the meeting, we have 2 monitoring items. First is update on school board sector issues. School boards in Ontario have been under ministerial orders since March 13th, 2020, until the end of the year in June. Staff have been following the recommendations of the ministry to provide education to students. The retrieval of students' personal items will begin next week. And as we know now that we are into June, it has already begun. School boards receive information at the same time as the public does, which creates a challenge for planning. And B, Regional Internal Audit Status Report. Jenny Baker, Regional Internal Audit Manager, presented the report and provided the annual independence assertion of compliance with S1110 of the International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Auditing. And with that, I move the report.
Thank you, Trustee Bingham, and we'll have Trustee Danko second the report as the other trustee on audit, and I will move through roll call. Trustee Archer, any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Trustee Bingham, did you have any further questions or, I guess, comments?
I'm good, thank you.
Trustee Buck?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Danko?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Deep?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Galindo?
I don't have questions, thank you.
Trustee Miller?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Mulholland?
No questions.
Trustee Paikin-Miller?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Tutt?
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Meddy?
No questions, thanks.
Student Trustee Prozic?
No questions at this time, thanks.
Thank you. So on the motion to receive the report, the audit report by Trustee Bingham, seconded by Trustee Danko, do we have anyone voting against? Hearing none, the report passes. We'll now move on to Special Education Advisory Committee report. There's 2 reports here, so we'll start on the report from May 6th, and which will be brought forward by Trustee Buck.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So May 6th, SEAC met, and we had Senior Manager of Business Services, Denise Dawson, join us, and she gave an overview of the preliminary 2021 budget. Obviously, things have moved along a little bit since then. We're still waiting on GSNs, but our group was able to get a sense of where we're looking financially for the coming year. We had Trish, I'm not going to be able to say her last name, Trish McKinsey, Manager of Psychological Services, and she said psychological staff will be administering gifted screening testing virtually, and informed consent approvals and confidentiality to be followed. So that's with our students. Work is being done even in the midst of our online learning and doing things virtually. They've adapted and looking forward to administering these gifted screening tests. We had several members updates, first from Lynn Vanderberg from Linwood Charlton Center. They're open and operating at a reduced service providing virtual care, planning child and youth mental health services. And as of the week that we had met, it was Children's Mental Health Week, and they were anticipating an increase in demand and service. Our chair of our board gave an update about devices and about graduation. We had an update also from Autism Ontario. They have virtual webinars for families focusing on mental health with activities and crafts. We also had an update from Superintendent Peggy Blair that parents would be receiving a letter from the principals regarding IPRC annual review meetings, followed by a second letter on individual education plans. She also let the group know that our board has submitted an application to the Ministry of Education to fund registration costs for the additional qualification course on teaching students with communication needs, autism spectrum disorder. And that we also have a portal she brought recognition of for specialized services, the portal for Learning for Success, which is also posted on the ministry's Learn at Home site. And with that, I would move the report.
Thank you, Trustee Buck, and we'll have Trustee Paikin-Miller second the SEAC report, and we will go to a roll call. Student Trustee Prozic, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, thanks.
Student Trustee Meddy?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Tutt?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Paikin-Miller?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Mulholland?
No questions.
Trustee Miller?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Galindo?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Deese?
Just a comment in that, can't begin to fathom what an impact this has had on our spec ed students and all the work that's gone into supporting them, and just a big thank you to staff and to all our partners that have really scrambled to continue to support our students.
Excellent comments, and that are certainly echoed by the rest of the board. Thank you, Trustee Deese. Trustee Danko?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Buck?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Bingham?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Archer?
No questions, thank you.
All right, so on the motion to receive the report by Trustee Buck, seconded by Trustee Paikin-Miller for May 6th, do we have anyone voting against? Hearing none, the report passes. We'll now move on to the second SEAC report from May 27th. Trustee Buck, can you please bring forward the report?
Yes, I can, Madam Chair. So on May 27th, we were able to meet again where Bill Torrance, Superintendent of Student Achievement, provided an overview of our SHISM program. I'll just go over some of the highlights. The ministry-funded program for grade 11 and grade 12 students, which includes specialized courses with hands-on training and certification. It supports all secondary pathways, apprenticeship, college, community, university, and workplace. HWDSB SHISM students earned college-level courses at a 7% higher rate than non-SHISM students, and workplace-level credits at 9% higher rate, which is fantastic to hear. It's always encouraging when we get a SHISM report. Great things are happening here. So with 11 new programs in 2019 and 20, there are currently 53 SHISM programs in 14 different sectors throughout our 13 schools, secondary schools. Our projected enrollment is over 1,700 students with a potential 573 Red Seal graduates. So Red Seal is the special designation that a student receives after they have finished the SHISM program that they sign up for, and they get a special Red Seal on their diploma. We had some member updates. Community Living Hamilton with Tracy Sheriff. She has started a podcast about embracing inclusion. We also had an update from the chair of our board who reminded everyone in the group that schools will be closed for the remainder of the school year, among other things that we already know around the table. We also had a superintendent's update from Superintendent Peggy Blair, review of changes to some standards of special education plan, offering the additional course teaching students with communication needs, autism spectrum disorder. So funding through EDU will cover registration fees and other associated costs. They've completed the system IPRC, or completion of system IPRC underway virtually. Development of a parent portal related to deaf and hard of hearing will be available next week, which would have gone into effect last week. Anyways, with that, I will move the report.
Thank you, Trustee Buck, and we'll have Trustee Archer second the report from May 27th. With that, Trustee Archer, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Bingham.
Actually, yes, I do. With the information items A, specialized high skill majors, and I know this question has been asked before, but do we have any of our students that we would consider in our special education department somewhere? Do we have any that are in SHISMs at the moment? And if not, what are we doing to be able to help some of those students get to the SHISM's point? Because if this is, I'm looking at it as if this is a report that's coming to the Special Education Advisory Committee, then how are we looking at making sure that we have some of our students, even our higher levels, which is crazy to say, but some of our students who would be able to get into that program, what are we doing to be able to help them get into a specialized high skills major program of some sort?
Thank you. So it was Superintendent Torrance that brought forward the report, but I'll turn to Director Figueredo.
So thank you through the chair, and thank you, Trustee Bingham, for that question, because as you can see, our specialist high school majors are expanding, and the criteria for the ministry is that we have all pathways provided for all learners. I'll ask Superintendent Bill Torrance to provide an update to your question in terms of, are we servicing more students with special education backgrounds, and what are we seeing in that trend?
Thank you, Director Figueredo, and through the chair. The Specialist High Skills Major programs are open to students in all pathways. I do not have the numbers of exceptional students with me right now who are currently enrolled in a CISM program. However, we do know that the programs are open to all students, and I can bring that information to a future SEAC meeting.
Trustee Bingham?
Okay, that would be good if we could get that information and how we can actually, from that point, possibility how we can actually help more students be able to reach a goal of getting to specialized high skills majors as well. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Trustee Bingham. Trustee Buck, I know you brought forward the report, but do you have any comments?
No, actually, I don't have any comments.
Trustee Danko.
Thank you. Through the chair, just two questions. On Trustee Bingham's question, I appreciate that an update would go to SEAC, and that's a report before us, but we also hear about the Specialist High Skills Major updates at least once a year in program. So could that information also go to Program Committee?
Director Figueredo.
Yes, through the chair, yes, because we do have an update. I think we provide a monitoring update to our specialist high skills majors every year to Program Committee. We'll do that, and then we'll also provide sort of that data analysis of students with who might have exceptionalities identified and what pathways or courses are they choosing. So we will provide that.
Trustee Danko, follow-up?
Thank you. That's it for that question. My other question, there's just a number of notes that I think would be beneficial to trustees, and I'm not sure where they would be reported to trustees. So, for example, changes to some standards of special education plan. In the previous report, it was an update on the IPRC meetings. Where would that be reported typically or provided to trustees? Would that be through an information session, or would that go through program?
Director Figueredo?
So through the chair, that if that was a request from trustees, it would go in the information session. Part of during the COVID-19, the minister was very clear, the ministry, that SEAC meetings would still be engaging and providing advice to boards. And what you're seeing is that a typical operational procedure we have every year is the Individual Placement Review Committee, IPRCs, must still continue, and we are doing it remotely in a safe way. But typically, if trustees had wanted more information around some of these, we would bring it to an information
Thank you. Those are all of my questions.
Okay. Trustee Dees.
No questions. I look forward to listening to the podcast on embracing inclusion. So it looks interesting. Thank you.
Trustee Galindo.
I don't have questions. Thank you.
Trustee Miller.
No questions for me. Thank you.
Trustee Mulholland.
No questions.
Trustee Paikin-Miller.
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Tutt.
No questions. Thank you.
Student Trustee Meddy.
No questions. Thank you.
Student Trustee Prozik.
No questions at this time. Thanks.
All right. So on the motion to receive the SEAC report from May 27th, brought to, motioned by Trustee Buck, seconded by Trustee Archer. Do we have anyone voting against? Hearing none, the report does pass. Moving along to item 11, report from Committee of the Whole from earlier this evening. Trustee Danko.
Thank you. And through the chair, it is my pleasure to represent the report of the private session of the Committee of the Whole held earlier this evening, that the Audit Committee report from May 28, 2020 be approved, including approving KPMG as the external auditor for the next year.
Thank you, Vice Chair Danko, and we'll have that seconded by Trustee Tutt. And I'll just go in reverse order. Student Trustee Prozic. Comments, questions?
No comments at this time, thanks.
Student Trustee Meddy.
No questions right now, thank you.
Trustee Tutt.
No question, thank you.
Trustee Paikin-Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Mulholland.
No questions.
Trustee Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Galindo.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Deek.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Danko.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Buck.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Bingham.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Archer.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Do we have, I guess, so on the motion, do we have anyone voting against? Hearing none, the report from the Committee of the Whole is passed. Moving on to item 12. This is a written notice of motion on the Police Liaison Program, brought to us by Trustee Miller and seconded by Trustee Galindo. With that, Trustee Miller, could you please bring forward the motion?
Hi there, thank you. So this is the notice of the motion, whereas the community has called on the HWDSB to review its police liaison program. Be it resolved that the board reviews the current police liaison program and that a report is provided back to trustees by staff in October 2020.
Thank you. And Trustee Miller, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would, thank you. I am tabling the motion to review our current police liaison program, not only because of an increased call to action from many members of our school communities, but also because I believe that we have a role as a board to reflect on any issue that concerns the safety of our students. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter in the streets. Black Lives Matter while waiting at bus stops. Black Lives Matter in our schools. Black students matter in our schools. Their safety matters. Their dignity matters. They deserve, like any one of our students, to be seen for who they are and supported. I'm very concerned at the potential for harm within this program, specifically but not exclusively to our Black student communities. I am concerned at the vagueness of the police liaison protocol agreement that dates back from 2016. And I do want to be fair in highlighting that staff were already seeking to review the program. I have to admit, though, that I personally support suspending the program while it is under review. In my opinion, the program as it stands does not reflect our current equity action plan. If this agreement existed with any other community partner, I believe that we would halt it until a clearer memorandum of understanding were possible. We have done that before with other community partners, always with the best interests of all our students in mind. I know that some communities will highlight our ongoing concerns around bullying, and I absolutely share their fears and strive to address it within our schools. I also know that the emerging themes from our Safe Schools Review Panel interim report states that very clearly that we need to update our policies and procedures and review them regularly, specifically calling out oppressive practices and working towards building a positive culture that is based on trust, equity, and accountability. The Safe Schools Review Panel interim report also highlighted the need to make better use of diverse community partnerships, to distribute resources across our school communities fairly, evaluating individual school climates, and to pay extra attention to and evaluate how our students are being supervised in school and online. It also explicitly mentioned that we need to build a better relationship of trust with our racialized and marginalized communities. Unfortunately, those are the specific communities that the Hamilton Police Department has a problematic track record with. We know that an independent consultation showed that Black youth in our city are more likely to be carded in schools and out in public areas. Furthermore, today, through a CBC article that shared the results of an independent investigation, we heard that the Hamilton Police failed to adequately protect attendees at Pride 2019. I will quote from the article by Samantha Craig. A new independent report says that the police response to violence at the 2019 Hamilton Pride Festival was inadequate, and the lack of police preparation meant that the service failed to protect festival attendees. The report also says that comments made by Chief Eric Gert after the event damaged the relationship with the LGBTQ community, and that service owes the community an apology. Further, a Toronto lawyer highlighted in a new report that police could have anticipated specifically that homophobes, white supremacists, and organized agitators would attempt to disrupt the event, but they didn't. I have very serious questions around how this program is being experienced within the walls of our schools by our students. I am hopeful for a report that looks at individual school makeup and the relationships that they have with this program. Some of my key concerns are: how often are police in our schools? What do they do when they're in there? Are they free to question our students without a parent or teacher present? Are there patterns to which schools have the highest numbers of calls? Is there any correlation between this program and our records of suspensions and expulsions within our system? How are student or parent complaints with this program or individual officers being handled? Are we placing a burden of reporting on our students? Could efforts to support this program be better directed into building local community engagement or mental health support? I know that my colleagues take the safety of our students as seriously as I do, and I welcome the discussion around protecting our communities. But I ask the table for real considerations on the equity and the intersectional questions regarding the police liaison program here at the HWDSB. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to the seconder, Trustee Galindo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo the comments that were made by my colleague, Trustee Miller, just now. Like most of my colleagues, my email and social media accounts have been flooded with messages both in support and against the HPS Liaison Officer program in the last day or so. And those messages have been coming from staff, students, community members, and concerned citizens. I do have several questions for staff, Madam Chair, if you'll entertain these questions for me. And perhaps I'll direct them at the Director of Education first, and then we'll see where they land, followed by a few comments afterwards. For you, Madam Chair, the first question: is there a formal document or memorandum of understanding procedure that defines clearly our relationship with the Hamilton Police Service?
Thank you. And I'm just going to restate the motion for trustees, just for clarity, because we are all separated right now. So the motion was, be it resolved that the board reviews the current police liaison program and that the report is provided back to trustees by staff, or to trustees by staff in October 2020. Trustee Galindo, can you repeat your question again?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so acknowledging that we may not have all of the questions, I would still appreciate some kind of response to the best of our ability. So the first question, is there a formal document or memorandum of understanding or procedure that defines our relationship with the Hamilton Police Service?
So with that, I think this segues appropriately. So I think just before we go into questions, we will turn to staff and just staff. Is there so Director Figueredo, is there any information that trustees need to be aware of towards this motion?
So thank you through the chair. Quick answer to the question is that we do have an official board police protocol with Hamilton Police Services and with the 4 school boards, and 4 being the English Catholic public and the French public and Catholic, which we review, and then within it there's reference to the school liaison program. In terms of what Trustee Maria Felix Miller has stated tonight, yes, staff has this on their radar to review. And is
no, I know what's coming. Oh, someone's not on mute. We could hear somebody laughing. Oh. Hello, we can hear somebody laughing, so please, folks, make sure that you're on mute. Thank you. Director Figueredo, please proceed.
Yeah, so thank you through the chair. What we will be bringing on June 22nd is an update on our equity action plan. And within our equity action plan, one of the priorities is school and classrooms. And an area of focus in that one priority is around school partnerships to enhance school and classroom practice when it comes to improvement in equity and inclusion. So within that report, there will be a list of the partners that we've worked with around our equity-seeking groups, and one of them will be the Hamilton Police Services, and the Hamilton Police Liaison Program will be an appendix, so trustees can be aware of what are the elements of the current program.
Trustee Galindo, so does that clarify your question?
Mm-hmm. It actually segues nicely into my second question. I was wondering if we could get some clarification on the format and mandate of the Hamilton Police Service Liaison Committee that exists with participation from all school boards. I'm wondering if we could maybe get an overview of what the mandate of that committee is, how often do they meet, and what the composition looks like.
I'm just going to, Trustee Galindo, because staff have, so we're speaking only towards the motion, and so with that, the motion is on to conduct a review, and we have heard from staff that they were already intending to come back on June 22nd with an in-depth report and update. But so I just want to make sure that all the questions being asked tonight are towards the motion of whether or not we are going to approve a review of the police liaison program. So, but I will turn to Director Figueredo.
So through the chair, and I'll speak to the protocol, the Hamilton Police School Board protocol. Last time was signed off in 2016 by the 4 boards and the Hamilton Police Services. In terms of the makeup of the committee, the working committee that reviews this, I'll ask Superintendent Sharon Stefan if she can provide an update of the people who sit on the committee who do the review of the protocol. I don't know, Superintendent Stefanian, she might be on mute, but I'm asking if she can give just an update of the makeup of the members of the committee who review it.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. My apologies. And through the chair, yes, thank you for the question. We do have a school board police services liaison committee that meets 2 to 3 times a year. Typically, when the protocol undergoes a review, there are representatives from the school boards around the table. Typically, those are superintendents, as well as other individuals who would be involved in Safe Schools work. So in the case of HWDSB, that process also involved the input from our manager of social work and mental health, so that perspective was at the table as well. As our director indicated, all 4 school boards within the community are party to the review that happened in 2016, and the review of the protocol, which is the document that guides the relationship between school boards and Hamilton Police Services. That review was prompted by some changes in legislation, which we're required to reflect within the protocol. Trustee Galendo?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I know that these are difficult questions, and they are related to the motion. And I apologize. I feel like I'm playing teeth here. But with that, is there any data that we have that breaks down how often Hamilton Police is called to our schools? Is that something that we could collect in preparation for the update that is coming to trustees on the 22nd of this month?
Director Figueredo?
Cameron Prozic?
Left. So through the chair, just point of clarification. So the question by Trustee Galindo, it's sort of broader than what I'm seeing as the motion in terms of the school police liaison program. That what we're going to be providing is an update on the program, and then once we come back in October with the review of the program. The program, the school police liaison program is about 11 officers across the 4 school boards. So we'll bring the elements, but in terms of the question Trustee Galindo asked, that is a broader question than just the program. From my understanding, it's a question around any time a police officer would be in our school outside of the liaison program. So that's not what's going to be coming on June 22nd. What we're bringing is updating the action plan, the elements of our partners, including this piece, and then we'll be conducting the review of the program. But staff also will be reviewing the protocol as we do with all partners every year. So I just wanted clarification and trying to manage expectations around that question, because that's broader than just about any time a police might visit or is invited or is called to our school. We, at this point, don't track that data at the central level. We do track at times when they're, depending on the infraction, we have to document when police are in the school. But that's much broader than the program. I just wanted to seek that clarification of the motion.
So, Trustee Galindo, so to that question, do you have further comments?
Mm-hmm. You know, I guess my struggle with this topic is that ultimately the liaison program itself falls within the jurisdiction of the Hamilton Police Service, and it was implemented by HPS with what I assume was consultation from all school boards in Hamilton. Most recently, the protocol document from 2016 that was signed. Now, granted, after reviewing that document, it's become clear to me that significant components, if not portions, of that document are completely outdated and don't accurately represent what the composition of the Hamilton Police Liaison Program looks like today. So I'm wondering, I guess more broadly speaking, I'm questioning what the value of doing a review of that external program would be. I think when internally it doesn't really fall within our operational mandate. What does fall within our operational mandate would be the partnerships piece, which is one of our 5 pillars of education. And I guess my next question, I don't know if we're able to answer it tonight, but it seems to me that the relationship or partnership that the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board has with the Hamilton Police Service is unlike any of the other partnerships that we have. with community organizations, one of, I guess what I have a hard time finding is what are our measurements of success for the success of the program? How do we evaluate that success, and how do we measure the accountability piece of it as well? I get the sense that the Liaison program is mostly autonomous across the 3 police divisions that the City of Hamilton is broken up into, and is reliant mostly on the individual relationships between individual schools and their liaison officer. So that is to say that the relationship between the liaison officer at Salt Fleet District High School, for example, could be completely different from that of another school halfway across the city. And I guess from an accountability piece, from measuring success, I struggle with, is there anything that we can do as a school board to make sure that we are serving the students and protecting the students that do feel that the relationship and partnerships that our school board has with the police service makes them feel vulnerable, threatened, and unsafe in our schools. Sure, we can conduct a review of that partnership, but I think a realistic outcome that I would like to see from all this is the development of a memorandum of understanding between HTS and our school board individually that really lays down the foundation and groundwork for what we expect from this relationship and how we can protect our students from any dangers that they may face from police. Because there's always 2 sides to this coin, right? There's that side, but then there's also the stories of how successful the program has been at some of our high schools, and I think that's become pretty evident to me over the last few weeks. So I struggle with the motion. I support the review, but I don't know if it's enough, and that's where I'm struggling. I don't know if staff might be able to add to that, but Madam Chair, those are my comments for now.
So, Trustee Galindo, I just want to, I'm going to try and summarize this. Is your question to staff if there will be a review of the partnership? One is and then I believe your second question in there was, will there be a memorandum of understanding revisited that would, and I wrote down, that would look at what we would expect from the relationship and how we would also ensure safety of students. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. If anything as well, I'll add a caveat to that. How do we measure the success? Like, what are our units of measurement for measuring the success and the outcomes of this program? And also, how do we hold ourselves accountable to these outcomes?
Okay. So to the director, there was, I guess, 3 questions there, which was, will we be reviewing partnerships? Will we be, will there be a memorandum of understanding? And within that memorandum of understanding will include details on how we measure success and what we expect from the relationship and how we will ensure student safety.
So through the chair, so just so again, to answer the questions, provide clarification. So if the motion passed, we will be doing a review of the Hamilton Police Services Liaison program. And we want to make sure, as we've heard the same concerns on both sides of the coin, we want to make sure, is this program meeting the outcomes or matching the needs in terms of what our students need? So, and we have reviewed program partnerships with other partners and develop clear memorandums of understanding regarding certain programs. So that would be part of our review process when it comes to this element of the protocol, which is the Hamilton Police Services Liaison program. So that would be part of our review process.
Trustee Galindo?
I think the fact that we're even having this discussion speaks to, I think, a broader discussion that folks are having at different political levels and at different in different cities, different school boards, where folks are reevaluating the relationship that they have between their organization and their local police forces, as many concerns have been brought up by the community. I think there's certainly an opportunity here for evidence-based reform of our liaison program in partnership with the Hamilton Police Service. I'm looking forward to what this review is going to bring up, and there are some legitimate concerns that I have, some legitimate concerns that folks in the community have, and the challenge that we have is how do we implement political solutions that are practical and evidence-based, that address the racism that folks are facing in the community. The timing of the independent review of the Pride events that happened last year was quite, it was just interesting timing. The report came out today, which highlighted further concerns that yet another marginalized group has within the community. And when I think about the students that were in attendance, there were a lot of Hamilton District School Board students who were likely attending their first Pride event who were witnessing violence and abuse with what is now known as a limited police response. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, a lot of work that needs to be done, but I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get something done with the help of staff in the next few days, if not weeks, and hopefully not months. But I'll leave that with you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I'll now go to the regular speakers list. So we have Trustee Tutt, Trustee Tutt, you might be on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes, I was on mute. My apologies for that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to address this motion. First and foremost, I want to thank Trustee Miller for putting forward the motion. I think she spoke eloquently to it. I could feel the tension and the pain in her remarks. I think it's shared genuinely around the boardroom table as well by other trustees. I think she accurately states the facts, and she accurately says that had this been any other agency, the board would have suspended the program while under review. But we don't have that here. And if there's any part of this motion that I would say that I'm disappointed with, it is with that aspect. And I've evolved on this position, to be very, very frank with my fellow trustees. I have now come to the conclusion that I think we need to suspend this program, had that been part of this motion, while the review was to occur. I'm disappointed that that's not part of it. With that being said, I'm encouraged that, like I said, Trustee Miller has put this forward, and there's going to be a review that's currently underway, and maybe a much more broader one as it completes throughout the summer and towards the tail end into October. I think I'm encouraged by the statements that I've heard as well from our chair and our director of education, who have come out as allies as well. And I know I'm diverting just a little bit, but I think it relates to this motion that they've come out and have acknowledged the systemic and racial injustices and racism that occurs in the police force and the school board. And for them standing forward and being allies, what did they get? They got torched by sophomoric comments by police unions. So I want to tip my hat to the Director of Education and to our chair, who showed courage in the face of those disgusting comments. Now, the staff, our staff that is now taking this review forward, I'm not aware of the parameters of the review, and I apologize if that's already been covered somewhere. But I am going to encourage that a robust and wide-ranging review take place. I think to dovetail into comments that I already heard from Trustee Galindo, I think it's important for the review to encapsulate and encourage those students who have been impacted by what's occurred and what they face day in and day out, and those students who have been targeted, that they also be a part of this review. I think we need to capture those voices. I would also like to hear from those liaison officers as well, because I want to know what their understanding of the program is. Okay, it's one thing to have a policy document and take a look at it and wordsmith it, but I like to know what their understanding, what their direction is, what their interpretation of that program is. Or are they too being scapegoated because they're getting direction from superiors up above? So I think you guys get my drift here. I think that review needs to be as wide-ranging as possible to have all those different voices included. I think that's the only way we're going to get a sound understanding, a full breadth of what this program is really about, what it's achieved, what it hasn't achieved, and is it still relevant? You know, we're in 2020, and it's unfortunate that in 2020, on the heels of multiple murders of innocent black men, multiple murders by people that are entrusted to serve and protect, that only now we're having this conversation across the world, really, when nobody's surprised that systemic racism occurs or has been occurring. It's just nobody's had the will to want to do anything about it. And if there were people that came forward, like our chair and our director, they were silenced. You know, I'll finish off with this. I could go on. Right? I'm happy that the review is going to happen. I encourage my fellow trustees to support this review. I think we need to get to the bottom of this program and find out why it still benefits our students. Why do certain students feel targeted and hurt and threatened by it? And is it still relevant in 2020? Do these officers serve that purpose? Because I'll be very frank with all of you trustees that in today's day, I think you guys will all agree that we need more educators than police officers in our school. And I'll leave it at that, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this motion for my colleague, Trustee Miller, and Trustee Galendo for his supporting comments to it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Tutt. Moving through the list here, I have Trustee Paikin-Miller.
Oh, you want me now?
Yeah, I'm going backwards up to the list.
Yes. Hello?
I can come back if you're not ready to speak yet.
No, I'm ready to speak. Okay. First of all, I just would like to understand, I need clarification on this. My understanding is that back in February, our own staff, HWDSB, had already started a review, and I understand the concept that you want to broaden the scope and so on. That's relevant, very relevant. But I'm trying to understand the need for a separate motion here on this issue when we were already engaging ourselves as a board in a review of this program. So could someone clarify that first of all for me?
So I will turn to Director Figueredo.
Okay.
Sorry, Alice, may I interrupt?
Who's speaking?
Sorry, it's Trustee Miller. I want to specify to my colleague why I thought it was important to put in a motion, because I did acknowledge that staff was already initiating this work. So if I could address that specifically ahead of the director.
Sure. I was going to the director to provide a governance lens. I guess I could also have sent that to Trustee Liaison Officer Miller, but yes, continue. So I want to make clear too that we normally do not engage in cross boardroom debate. So I want to make those terms very clear. But Trustee Miller, you did make the motion, so please do provide rationale. Thank you.
Sorry, and thank you. I do appreciate that. I didn't mean to interrupt or jump in. To my colleagues across the table, I specifically requested, or excuse me, I decided to put forward this motion even though staff had already initiated this type of work. One, because I wanted a specific date. I wanted a date where the report needed to come back in front of us. So frankly, I wanted a deadline. And furthermore, what is going on here that we are hearing from each other is exactly why I felt it was so important for us to address it as a board today, given the climate that is out right now in our city and beyond, but also just because the discussions that we are having here, I am hoping can shape what the report encompasses and the scope and the questions that need to be asked by staff. I hope that they can capture the conversations that we are having right now and implement them, because we are having these conversations with our community, and I'm hoping that that will translate. So that is why I personally decided to put this on the table right now. Sorry, thank you for the chance.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Maria. I appreciate it. I just would like to hear also from the director a response to my question as well.
Director Figueredo, are you able to, and if not, we can certainly turn to the liaison officer, but can you provide from a governance lens how this works in terms of a report coming on the 22nd and a motion speaking to it now? And if we can, you can send, of course, to Liaison Officer Miller if needed.
So thank you through the chair. I think Trustee Maria Felix has captured it. My response, if the question came to me first, would be, as Trustee Aitken-Miller has said, yes, staff, February, we're going to commence review as we work through a partnership with HCCI. COVID after March break sort of delayed pieces. However, trustees from a governance lens always have the purview to bring a motion to the table to make sure that there's an accountability piece for staff in terms of how comprehensive the review will be, and for us to hear what the concerns may be, and secondly, for a time limit. And so that allows the trustees to hold staff accountable based on those three parameters, which Trustee Felix Miller has spoken to.
Okay. All right, that explains it. Thank you. I am totally an anti-racism person. I have been my entire teaching career. But I just need to understand, it's almost like we've accepted a situation that we really haven't got all the facts on yet. And I would like to feel that we're getting all the facts before we make any kind of sweeping, broad generalizations about anything. So that for that reason, I do support a review, but I want it to encompass both sides of the coin. That's my statement.
Thank you, Trustee Aitken-Miller. I do have student trustee Prozic. I've been notified wants to make an amendment to the motion. So what this means for governance purposes, so folks understand, is that we'll hear the student trustee. I will select two people from the list to move the motion and to second it. That does not mean that you are in favor of it or against, for that matter, but it does allow the item to go onto the floor. Student trustee Prozic?
Yeah, I would like to amend the motion to read that the Hamilton Warrington School Board conduct a full review of the police liaison program, and while the review is underway, suspend the police liaison program as much as possible until the review is concluded.
Sorry, and just people, you can please make sure that you're on mute. So with that, I will turn to Trustee Miller. Do you, I guess I'll have you make the amended motion, seconded by Trustee Galindo. And with that, so it's now a motion, so folks understand, because I know that this is difficult when we're apart. So what has now happened is we now have an amended motion on the floor. So the speakers list begins again.
So, Chair,
and you can.
Alex, just through the chair, just a point of order through the trustee officer, so we're following proper governance rules.
Right. So a student trustee isn't able to make an amendment to the motion that comes forward. The amendment needs to be moved and seconded by an elected official trustee, but not by the original mover. So Trustee Felix Miller wouldn't be able to amend her own motion at this time, but there's other trustees could move and second the amendment.
Okay.
On behalf of student trustee Prozik.
Thank you for that clarification. So to the amendment, so folks, the amendment is to add additional language to suspend the police liaison program while a review is being complete. And I'm at random selecting Trustee Tutt and seconding by Trustee Danko. So with that, this is to the amendment.
Sorry, can you select someone else? I don't support this, and I recognize that's to get it on the floor, but I feel like we're out of order right now.
Okay. So I am looking for a seconder, and it cannot be. So I guess I will turn to Trustee Deese to second the motion. Again, it does not mean that you support it or are against it. It's just to get the item on the floor. So with that, I will go through the speakers list.
Sorry, Alex. It's Trustee Deese. Just a point of clarification on that. If you second a motion, does it not mean that you're supporting that motion?
No, the rules are different right now due to the fact that we are operating under different policy rules. Different rules right now is only to get it on the floor. So it is all motions currently tonight. Everyone that I am putting on is first and second. Normally, I've been trying to, with reports, choosing 2 members of the committee in order to have a person motion it. But because I cannot see you raising your hand, I'm selecting people at random. So that is where, and it cannot, as we've just heard from Trustee Liaison Officer Miller, it cannot be individuals of the original motion. So it cannot be Trustee Miller and it cannot be Trustee Galindo. We are simply looking to debate and discuss the item. So at this point, I'm looking for someone to second, so that we can debate the item. So Trustee Tutt, I have is putting the motion on the floor.
Sorry, Alex, through the chair, just to clarify, if you have a speakers list of first-time speakers who haven't yet spoken to the original motion that Trustee Miller and Trustee Galindo had put on the floor, I think we should go through that speakers list first, and then an amendment to the motion could be considered. So, I'm wondering if there's an original speakers list that we just haven't finished going through the first-time speakers.
Thank you very much, Anna. I've been sitting here waiting for the first speaker on the first question.
Okay, so folks, we can certainly do that. It's just that I also have memories of in the past where when an amendment motion has come forward, that meant that the original discussion was halted while we continued. But I also recognize that that this is difficult because we are not able to see each other, and I am certainly not able to see anyone raising hands. So with that, I will take the advice of our trustee liaison officer, who is our expert in governance, and with that, I will continue the original speakers list and come back to, I guess, the amendment at the end of the original discussion. So I apologize for any confusion. I appreciate everyone's patience. This is hard for everyone right now. So with that, we've already had Trustee Tutt speak, Trustee Paikin Miller speak. So I'll move now to Trustee Mulholland. This is to the original motion, and the original motion was only to debate whether or not to have a review. So Trustee Mulholland, to the original motion, whether or not to have a review.
I'm speaking on the original motion, am I?
That is correct.
Okay, then. Madam Chairperson, when you call the question, I will be supporting the intent of the question. I mean, it's a very important issue, but it's also very complex, and I'm concerned that it will interfere with the staff's process going forward because it could be diverted into the realm of the political arena, and that would still erode the total intent of the motion. So I will be supporting it when it's called, only the intent of it. I feel that it's the timing is not too well thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mulholland. We have Trustee Miller's already spoken. Trustee Galindo's already spoken. Trustee Deese to the original motion.
Sorry. So I do support the motion, the original motion by Trustee Miller. And again, like others have stated, I appreciate, the passion and the purpose of this, and, for her really giving a great account of the reasoning for it. So I do support this. I think it's a good place to start, is to understand what the roles and responsibilities and what they're doing in our schools. So I think it's a really good place to start. I have a feeling that it's probably going to expand out from there as we kind of dissect it, but I do believe it's a good place to start. There's been talk of suspending the program until while we do this, and my concern with that is we don't even know yet entirely what the program is. And my concern, and I guess this question is to the director or to staff, through you, Madam Chair, is if this suspending the program, what would the outcomes, or what would be the fallout of that, if there's that's possible to answer? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn to Director Figueredo. The question was, what would the impact be? Actually, Penny, I'm sorry, but I feel that question would go to that would relate to actually the amendment. And we're not speaking to the amendment right now. We're only speaking to right now to the main motion. We'll come back to the amendment at the end, and you'll have a second opportunity to ask questions. Is that
okay? Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah,
so
that's fine. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? I know you've already spoken, but do you have any further questions or comments to the main motion? And to clarify again, and folks, I know I sound like a repeat record right now. I'm just trying to make everything as clear as possible under these challenging circumstances. So do you have any further questions to the main motion, which is to do a review?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will now move to along the speakers list, Trustee Danko, to the main motion on whether or not to do a review.
Thank you. And through the chair, I appreciate the motion coming forward from Trustee Miller and Trustee Galindo. This is a really challenging time, and I do support a review of the Police Liaison Officer program, because we need to learn what the needs that the program meets are in our system. And we need to learn more about where there are challenges, and we've heard about those from some members of our community, but we also need to learn about where there are opportunities to meet the needs of our students and our school communities through, whether it's through this same program and with adjustments or through different measures. A review provides the opportunity to identify the student and school needs, to determine the right resource to address the need, and this is where I've already heard staff committing to asking different questions, but asking the question, is this outreach program meeting the needs of our students and our school communities? And as Trustee Galindo mentioned, it's important that we make evidence-based decisions. And so any action I take, I want to make sure that's grounded in evidence. So as we gather data, we also want to be mindful that there's also related data from the bullying review panel that's coming forward. So I think in terms of the timeline that's provided, we're being responsive, we're doing it in a timely manner, we are trying to minimize harm for anyone across our entire system. And I see this as a great opportunity to find out what the needs are and are we meeting them, and asking those key questions that a number of trustees have already identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Danko. I will turn to Director Figueredo. Are you able to provide a comment back?
So, through the chair, I took the comments down. What I am doing is writing down the comments of each trustee to make sure I'm capturing their voice, but I don't, I concur with what Trustee Danko has said, but I don't think there was a question for me to answer at this point in time.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if there was any, I just wanted to ensure there was an opportunity to provide any information in terms of what might have been being collected. And we appreciate, because we cannot see you, Director Figueredo, for letting us know that you're recording down everyone's remarks. So Trustee Danko, I'm just going to confirm you have no further questions or comments to the main motion?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Buck, to the main motion, which is to conduct a review.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I support the motion as it is written. I think actually Trustee Johnstone captured it well when she said that we can always do better, and that's why every few years we review who our partners are. Every few years we review pretty much everything that we do. And in this instance, with the review, my only comment would be that I would hope that the data would capture incidences with police involvement and without police involvement. The severity of those instances too, just to give a scale of what tends to happen when police are in our buildings versus not. But other than that, I support the motion as it's written.
Thank you. So we'll just, Director Figueredo will have taken notes down on your comments. With that, I'm going to continue through the speakers list. Trustee Bingham, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Yes, I do. After listening to everything, yes, I support the motion. I just like Trustee Mulholland, I feel it's the wrong timing for it. I really feel that this motion would have made more of an impact on June 22nd after the staff report. The staff report would have given us one thing, and then we could have dissected that and said, okay, what are we really truly looking for in this review? What this motion is looking for, what in the report, how deep are we going to go in this? What if everything that we want, that we think we want, and it's a think we want, in a report to come back in October is given to us on June 22nd, then what? I just feel in hearing that report first, it would give us a much deeper understanding of really knowing what we want coming back in a report. And it just would have been a lot stronger with that report. I do support it, but at the same time, I just feel it's the wrong timing for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bingham. Trustee Archer.
Thank you. I do agree with Christine and Ray. I agree. I've been waiting for a report since fall of 2015, and we can't really ask questions until we have some information on the 22nd. So I'm anxiously waiting to hear what the report brings, and then I can ask my questions. It's hard to ask the questions right now without the information. I guess this has come up because of the emails that have been coming in the last 3 or 4 days, very strong emails. But there are other supports too, also for this program. I can't make a decision without the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Archer. Student Trustee Meddy.
Yeah, thank you. And I've got to say, I'm going to be completely honest about this.
Oh, we cannot hear you, Student Trustee Meddy, so I just want to make sure you didn't accidentally mute yourself.
Sorry, yes, I did. So I'm going to be honest about this. As a racialized student, I'm aware of the fact that I'm in this role because of my promise to represent racialized and minority students. And because of this privilege, I know that it's my responsibility to be completely transparent about the needs of the Black and racialized community in regards to policing in our schools. And in light of the Black Lives Matter movement, I have to say that the time is past overdue for the board to hold ourselves accountable to the concepts of equity that we preach. And when our board released a joint statement with the HCCI on anti-Black racism in February, along with last week's letter centering the importance of Black students and amending the Equity Action Plan, it was made really clear our intentions to move forward in common understanding with our community partners, as well as our Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities. And I have to say that systemic and institutional racism, they're not issues of America and they're not issues of Canada, but these are issues of our own city, of our own community, and our own schools. And the racialized community has been relentlessly advocating for their basic human rights far before these past few weeks. And right now, our board fails to collect and publicly release qualitative and quantitative data regarding the negative and violent interactions between police officers and students in our schools. And I think we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard of accountability. And when the Ontario Human Rights Commission has explicitly described Hamilton Police to have engaged in textbook descriptions of racial profiling, I really think it is our responsibility as a board to protect our own students from these breaches of their own human rights. And I can say that students and community members are continuing to come forward with experiences of violent interactions with police in schools, like children being handcuffed or placed in the back of police cruisers. So we have to not only address but investigate why these actions are contradictory to the guiding principles of our Safe Schools policy and our Equity in Action plan. And we have to address why they're even contradictory to the police department's intent to maintain safe, inclusive, and equitable schools. So when our school board fails to publicly release documentation of disciplinary action among marginalized students within schools, including suspensions and expulsions and other methods of disciplinary action prior to the involvement of police, and we know that policing in schools has proven to push Black students out of schools and into systems of incarceration, it's far overdue for our board to cut ties with these historically racist and colonial organizations who are failing to prioritize restorative justice and de-escalation techniques. And gaps in the 2016 protocol make it extremely clear that administration and police are able to reinterpret protocol based on their own personal biases. And so with the HWDSB's Equity in Action plan and their intent to identify and strengthen community partnerships, which engage communities from diverse backgrounds and organizations that serve equity-seeking groups, we have to hold ourselves accountable. So when it comes to the safety of our students, we can't wait until a Black life or a racialized life has been publicly violated, because not only has the Minneapolis Board of Education terminated its contract with the Minneapolis Police Department, but the Portland Board of Education discontinued the regular presence of armed officers in order to reinvest in struggling marginalized communities. So the termination of our associations with the Hamilton Police Services and further investment in Black and racialized communities and restorative justice practices is not far-fetched. And we could see that in the way that the Toronto District School Board themselves, they voted to end police presence in TDSB schools in 2017 for the protection of their racialized students. So I know that this review is beyond crucial, but with that said, it is definitely not enough. And so I definitely would like to suggest an amendment to the motion if it's possible. And I'll leave you guys with that.
Thank you, Student Trustee Meddy. And with that, so I'll move to Student Trustee Prozic. If you could please speak to the main motion. And I think you might still be on mute, Trustee Prozic.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. So to the main motion, I guess what I can say is that I'm excited to see what will come of this review. What we do know is that we have police officers in our schools, and the intent of this program is to make sure we have a positive police presence for students to interact with in our schools. And, you know, police's job, often are to see people on their bad days, on their worst days. And so having a positive police presence in our schools, in theory, would help students kind of see that, you know, police officers aren't just there to do negative things. Now, the thing is, though, is in light of these recent events, we have been seeing that students have been are being made uncomfortable by this police presence in our schools, especially in light of these recent events. I mean, that's a direct correlation that students have made. So through this review, I'm just hoping to see that students and staff alike are consulted in kind of what they believe this program is meant for and what they believe that the program, how they believe the program could be improved. So I guess I'll start with the question is that who and how will parties be, relevant parties be consulted in this review?
So I'll turn to Director Figueredo.
So thank you for the question. We want to make sure that there's a strong equity and human rights lens to this review. Hence, in the past, we did not have an equity human rights officer, so Johanna Otiti will be included in this. So we want to make sure we gather some voice, as we have 2 years ago, the advisory committee of our equity and human rights advisory committee. We want to make sure those voices and that outreach provide some extensive review as well. So those will be new dimensions added that would not have been included in the past.
Student Trustee Prozic.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing, all the relevant parties consulted and, what comes through with the report. Even though it's past my term, I'll definitely be staying tuned. But I guess, from my perspective and from what I've kind of seen and heard is that, when this program was really founded, it was obviously established with the intent of having a positive police presence in our schools. I continue repeating that, but, that's the intent of this program. And it could do good that way. But I feel like, from what I've been hearing and kind of anecdotally, it's kind of lost its vision in the past few years or past couple years where, these police just frequently visit schools and both the school administration and the police officer, they don't really know what they're supposed to do during these visits. So oftentimes they just end up roaming around the halls with the administration staff and, kind of just reinforcing that, the police are just there to tell me to get to class or, it's just reinforcing that negative kind of disciplinary view lens that students view police with. So I'm hoping, during this review, we can revisit the concept and the original intent of this program and reform the program to truly be and truly allow for a positive police presence in our schools because obviously we're lacking that right now. And obviously students aren't appreciating the police presence we currently have in students. I know Ahona and I have had, countless students reach out to us in light of everything and talk about, why do we have police in our schools, right? Like, are they just muscle for, the principal and vice principal, right? So it's not a good image we have with the existing program. And so I'm looking forward to see what comes with this review, and hopefully we can reform the program to become, something to actually support students and, reform it in a way that does establish that positive presence in the schools. Because I'd just like to say that, it definitely would be beneficial to, for students to meet a police officer when they're not in the middle of, disciplining or, arresting somebody, right? Because that just continues to reinforce that negative image. So hopefully we can come to a conclusion. I'm looking forward to see what staff present in October.
Thank you. So that's the main motion. I have had, I am going to turn to trustee officer, liaison officer, it's our trustee officer Miller to provide an update with regards to governance on how an amendment, would be put on the floor.
Thank you, and through the chair, just to clarify, when an amendment or any kind of a motion is placed on the floor by a mover or a seconder, it does not necessarily mean that either of them support or are not supportive of the motion. It really is just to put the motion on the floor so that this type of a dialogue can happen. An amendment that would be coming forward tonight, it would be out of order to come from trustee Maria Felix Miller as the original mover of this motion, simply because then it would be looking like it needed to be a withdrawal. It does sound like student trustee Prozik has provided an amendment that would need to have a mover and a seconder. So at this time, I would advise that the chair ask for a mover and a seconder for the amendment, and we can have the amendment repeated at the appropriate time so that folks are aware of that, and then ask for a mover and a seconder instead of pinpointing one that how we've been doing it previously. Is that helpful?
Yes. Do I have, so for the second item, and I want to be clear, the second, so student trustee Prozik recommended, or amendment that he would need 2 fully elected trustees to put on the floor. So his recommendation was to have the program paused while a review was being complete until October. Do I have someone to move the motion?
Hi, it's trustee Tutt. I'll move the motion.
Thank you, trustee Tutt. Do I have a seconder? do.
Can Trustee Galindo second the motion?
Okay, so I have Trustee Tutt moves the motion, seconded by Trustee Galindo. So I'm now going to restart the speakers list, and I will this is to the second item, to the amended item, and I will start with Trustee Tutt as the mover. Trustee Tutt, would you like to speak to the item or ask questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I've had the opportunity to hear everybody's comments with regards to what their concerns were initially. And I think we're kind of missing the main purpose or point of the amendment. The amendment is asking for a suspension of the program while the review continues on and gets completed. All I heard going around was, well, we need the evidence to make the informed decision. Well, nobody's denying you of that. Nobody said don't let the review continue or let's stop the evidence from coming forward. What we're saying is let's be fair. Let's continue on with what we've done in the past, whereas we've suspended programs while a review has taken place. But here, we don't want to apply that same standard. So I beg the question, why not? I can understand and I appreciate this is an extremely uncomfortable conversation and topic for trustees. But now is the time to have that conversation. I mean, it's long overdue. We've heard that as well. All I'm asking for and supporting this motion is let's do what we've always done. Let's follow the same process, the same procedure, and allow this review to take place in an equitable fashion. Let's not go ahead and start creating other precedent or new precedent that we might come to regret in the future. It's important, yes, that we need all the facts to come forward. But at the same time, we are hearing the cries of racialized students feeling injustice, saying they've been targeted. We've had examples come from our two student trustees as well that have laid out examples where children have been impacted by this current policy or program. It deserves to be suspended if that's the pain that it's been causing while this review continues in its entirety. Nobody's denying the trustees of any of the full facts. Those are my comments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Tutt. Turning to Trustee Galindo on the amendment to suspend the program while a review is being conducted.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in support of this, obviously, as well. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this operationally, and I have a few questions for staff, probably the director. Earlier, I made a comment around the fact that the protocol document that exists, that our school board signed in 2016, is a protocol document that is governed by the Hamilton Police Service. It's mostly, at least my interpretation of it, is that it's mostly a procedural document for HPS, less so a document that guides our relationship or a document that guides what our procedures would be at the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board with regards to matters of policing or community safety. So I guess, and it's interesting too because the exact language or the exact mandate of the liaison program doesn't exist in that document, but there doesn't sound like there's an actual document that exists that defines what that liaison program looks like, at least based on the research that I've done in the last few weeks. So operationally, through the chair, perhaps to the director, what does it look like to suspend the liaison program from our end? I suspect that classes aren't in session, assuming that students go back to school in September. If someone calls the police will still show up despite the cancellation or the suspension of that program. I suspect that liaison officers will still exist because it's mandated by the Hamilton Police Service, not by the Hamilton District School Board. I think that would be the question that I have for the director. Overall, though, my big takeaway from this is that it's more of a symbolic gesture to show that we are taking these matters seriously at the Hamilton District School Board, that while we're conducting a review, we would expect the same from the Hamilton Police Service, a review that engages all school boards and defines clearly what the new mandate would look like in an effort to address concerns of racism, homophobia, and xenophobia, so on and so forth, in our school system in Hamilton. So I'll leave it at that, and then I'll forward my question to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so just to try and capture this, Trustee Galindo, so the request is that police conduct a parallel review, or sorry, can you clarify?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just clarify
I'll
what
clarify
the
my
request?
question. Yeah. It's not a request, it's a question to the director. Operationally, what would it look like to suspend the liaison program from our end, considering that it's not administered by the Hamilton District School Board, but rather a program that's run by the Hamilton Police Service? I suspect that it is there will still be liaison officers if we decide to suspend the program. So I assume that it's more of a symbolic gesture to show the Hamilton Police Service that we take this matter seriously and as a show of support for our marginalized students across the system.
Okay, so Director Figueredo, what would a pause look? I guess a suspension of the program look like?
So through the chair, so to the Trustee Galindo's first question, if the program is paused, boards would still work with police because we have legal matters that we still have to adhere to. So in the case of the school resource program in Toronto District School Board, when they suspended the resource program, which is different than our liaison program, they then work through dispatch to deal with all the legal requirements around reporting and safe schools procedures that school boards are required to follow. In terms of your second question, if we pause, the liaison officers are funded not by us; they are funded by the Hamilton Police Services. Your question would be, will they still exist? I mean, I can't answer on behalf of the Hamilton Police Services. All I know is that there's a factual about 11 Hamilton police officers assigned as school liaison officers. My assumption is that they would continue to support the other boards, the other three boards, if we paused our program during our review.
Trustee Galindo?
No, thank you. The director did answer my questions and confirmed my assumptions. To me, it's a no-brainer. With any other community partnership that we have, if they have violated a terms of our memorandum of understanding, or even though one doesn't necessarily exist with HPS, it definitely warrants a review. And while we conduct a review, it only makes sense to me, like we've done with previous partners, that we suspend the program until that review is completed, until a memorandum of understanding is developed, and a new terms of reference where we understand what our expectations are on both sides. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so now moving through the regular speakers list. Trustee Archer.
I guess it's more of a comment. School has been closed since the middle of March, and I'm hearing that students have been harassed and bullied or whatever the last few weeks. I don't understand where this happened, how it happened, if the students are not in school. I'm very confused, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Archer, I'm okay to continue to move through the list, right? That was a comment to the Board of Trustees.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Trustee Bingham.
I'm getting slightly confused as to what we're speaking to. I know what we're speaking to, but listening to others, we are going off in different directions, and it's getting confusing. Listening to everyone, it's not that I don't agree with what's going on here, but in speaking to the motion and speaking to the second part, we're getting way too much information from other people, and it's getting extremely confusing. In speaking to it, should we be suspending this? What's it going to look like? What's it going to cost? Those are questions. When this says October what? What is that date? And if we end up suspending until we get that report, do we automatically put them back in? What's that end result on this? I'm starting to get really frustrated as to speaking directly to the motion. And I get it. I understand everything that is going on out there. I understand everything going on in our schools, and I understand the frustration that is happening right here. But we need to buckle down on what it is that we are actually looking at here. What is it we want from the report? We don't even know. We haven't even said what we want from a report, and we're already talking about putting in new guidelines. There's a lot of frustration, so I really, you're going to find my frustration is happening, and it shouldn't be. So if this is going to be, I guess my question comes down to, if this is going to end up passing tonight and we have a report of some sort, we haven't really put anything into it yet. If we have this extra part where we're going to suspend the liaison programming until October when, we don't know, we haven't got that either. What's going to happen directly after that? Are we going to have another motion to say we're going to keep them, they're coming back? Is it automatic? Like, there are way too many questions to be asking that nobody's asking, and I'm getting frustrated just listening to all of this instead of really, let's pin it down. What are we doing here? Let's really put it right down on paper. What are we doing as trustees instead of going, I don't know, I just feel like we're all over the map here instead of concentrating on what we need to do. So I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bingham. Trustee Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had a bit different experience from my own community on the West Mountain over the last several months. I've actually received feedback from parents that would prefer to see a greater police presence in our high schools, especially. A major comment in regards to that. Somebody needs to go on mute. A major comment in regards to that that the parents have had is our teachers are in the business of educating our students, and that doesn't mean, or it shouldn't mean that they need to be breaking up fights or also playing referee in the middle of class or in the hallways. And if there was a greater police presence, that would both discourage those unsavory behaviors that we don't want to see, and that would also mean that they're available immediately if a situation were to arise. So that's not a position that I hold myself, but that is one that I have heard from within my own community. So we do need to bear in mind that there are other voices that maybe aren't quite as loud right now in the public sphere in regards to these issues. So I did want to ask a few questions. is it possible to get feedback from staff about if there's been a formal complaint about any specific issue that has happened in or on our property that is directly related to the police, the Hamilton Police Service?
Director Figueredo, and I guess if you want to respond to that, and I guess to that question.
Yeah, so thank you through the chair. And to Trustee Becky Buck's question, yes, we have. We've had a range of emails and things in the past where people have said both that the police presence is welcome and needed, and others who say that the police presence is potentially causing harm to our students just by their presence or surveillance. So we've heard it from both perspectives. And when we will engage in conversations with our Hamilton Police Services. So we've heard a balanced approach from students, and we've heard mixed reviews from students, like we've had as well.
Trustee Buck, further questions?
Thank you for that. I didn't want to base my opinion on assumption, so I'm glad for that clarification. Other than the more recent issues that our board had with HCCI back in, I believe it was February, where we needed to halt that partnership for a stretch of time until a memorandum of understanding was able to be drafted and agreed upon by both sides. Has there ever been a situation in recent history, the last several years or so, where a partnership with our board and a community organization needed to be halted while a review or an issue of some magnitude was dealt with?
Director Figueredo.
So thank you through the chair. To Becky Buck's question, yes, there has for many reasons. Sometimes a program with a partner is paused so we can review because a partner might provide multiple programs to the outcomes of that program. Sometimes a partnership has been paused just because of resources that have changed with the partner that were available at one time that are no longer available, and we couldn't sustain the partnership. So the answer to the question, yes, it has, and our new process now is to build in those a cyclical review of program partnerships, because we know needs change and also available resources change as well.
Trustee Buck?
Okay, thank you for that also. I appreciate just that clarification. It can get easy to just throw around facts, I'm using air quotes, facts, without actually knowing firsthand knowledge. So I'm glad to have that opinion validated by the director. I understand the outcry within our community right now, and the experiences of our students and of the wider community in Hamilton. These stories are both shocking and maddening to hear, especially over the last several weeks when we have I'm sorry, somebody needs to go on mute. It sounds like you're rubbing against the microphone. Thank you very much. I would encourage the Hamilton Police Service to do a review of their own practices, the qualifications of those that they hire, making sure that they're weeding out the bad apples before they put someone into a position of power within their ranks. I don't see this as something that at this moment warrants us suspending the relationship. And I think that so much good has come out of the relationship, and that is being overshadowed right now by stories of the bad. But the good is still there, and I have faith that HPS will take the feedback that the community is giving them right now and improving their services and looking critically at the way they approach racism. And I have faith that they will improve naturally on their own. And I don't see really the point in us suspending that relationship in the interim before the report comes back.
Thank you, Trustee Buck. Trustee Dees?
Oh, I think first and foremost, I just want to clarify this. If this amendment passes, then the original motion will include this amendment, which means that if we still want to review, but we're not agreeing to the pause, then and that fails, then the motion, the whole motion will fail. Correct?
No. So what would happen, to make things clear tonight, because it's been challenging chairing in this format, what we're going to do is when we get to the end of the speakers list, we will vote on the amendment. If the amendment fails, then we will go back to the main motion, which is to do a review, and we'll vote at that time. If the motion passes, so if the amendment passes, then we still have to do a vote on the entire main motion. Does that make sense?
Yes, just so the motion will then include the amendment for final approval. Correct?
Yes. Do you want me to turn to the liaison officer, Miller, in order to clarify further?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Heather, if you could please help to provide some governance clarity.
Okay, so you'd be voting on the amendment to the motion now, and if that passes, then you would go back and you would vote on the original motion with the amendment in it. If the amendment doesn't pass, then you'd still have to go back to the original motion and vote on that. Does that help clarify?
Yeah, sorry, it does. I guess I just want it to be made aware that if we do pass the amendment, for those that maybe don't support or support the original motion but not the amendment, you'd still have to vote against it. I think that's what I was just making sure that everybody was aware. Correct?
Okay, so you'd be voting.
Sorry, Heather.
Sorry. You make the vote on the amendment first.
Yeah.
And then if it passes, then you go back to the original motion with the amendment in it. So
yes, so you'd have to support both pieces to pass it.
You're saying out loud for
not necessarily.
Hold on. The amendment, if it passes, the vote on the main motion is amended. We all know that. God, we've been on this for 2 hours now. It's getting not confusing. It's getting ridiculous. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
sorry, Madam Chairman.
Sorry. So you could vote in favor of the amendment, but then vote against the original motion with the amendment in it. It's 2 votes, so that's up to trustees to decide on how they would wish to vote on it.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. So a few things. Like I said, I support, as I said before, the original motion. My struggle with the amendment in regards to suspending the program is I don't know enough on what we're suspending. I don't know the impact it'll have on our students. I don't know what it'll look like. I don't know perhaps the gaps it'll leave. How that'll be picked up. What will it leave some students vulnerable? That's my fear, is I just don't know enough about suspending this program and what that looks like. So that's why I struggle with that suspending of the program, because in my community, and as many of you know, I had an office in the high school for a number of years before as a trustee, and worked with the police liaison officer, and we had and they had a very strong relationship with the school, and came in and did a lot of teaching with our students around some of the issues that arose, such as sexting when it became, there was a big issue, and some other things that came up. And also parents brought the school liaison officers in, school council brought them in to speak to parents about, about social media. I think it's particularly been a subject that they've come in and taught about, and not charged us to do this, whereas if you bring in other speakers, there's a charge. So I'm just saying, I believe it needs to be reviewed. Obviously more needs to be done. We need to find out why students are not feeling safe with the school resource officers, and how that's happening, and what's that looking like, and how we can improve that. But I think suspending the whole program worries me. So I would just like to, and maybe a question to the director is, do you have a clear picture of what it will look like if we suspend school liaison officers? Director Figueredo.
So through the chair, we do have a document that has been provided that outlines the key elements of what the police liaison program looks like. Our challenge will be, in terms of the review, is to understand how it's actually being implemented. And I can give you some of the key elements, which were just identified by yourself, Trustee D. More of that detail will come on the 22nd, but there are some elements here that you've identified around participating in special events, facilitating child and youth presentations, supporting restorative justice and diversion referrals, some school lockdown drills, consultations on safe schools incidents, and also around a piece around what's one of the elements around proactive policing by patrolling school premises and properties is an area that we want to unpack. So we have a list of these elements that have been provided by the document by our Hamilton Police Services.
Brave Mulholland.
Those we'll be reviewing. So that's the essence of what would be impacted under the current COVID-19 reality we're living right now. But that's just high level, like some of the key elements.
Trustee Dees. So I guess what I'm asking is if we, because if we suspend the program, are we, I guess in the director's opinion, or knowing what else they're doing, are we going to lose some of the benefits of the school? Are there going to be students, as we know, there are some students that feel safer with the police presence, or so I guess that's my question is, can you, I don't know whether clearly state or think that suspending the program will not have any negative impact? Let me just say that. Will it have negative impact?
Director Figueredo, are you able to respond?
So through the chair and to Trustee Deep's question, what I can say is there'll be some impact. But we already identified that we wanted to review the Liaison program and to review all of these elements with a stronger equity lens and to unpack some of these elements to make sure they're meeting student needs. So there would be some impact, but what I can say is from a Safe Schools lens, if the police liaison program piece is paused until the review, any kind of Safe Schools matter we'd have to deal with, or any kind of duty to report matter would still apply as we would work through dispatch through any of those required pieces that we would have to work with.
Okay, but I'm assuming some of the proactive things that are happening that I assume still happen, and I don't know whether it varies school to school, but some of the proactive pieces that our liaison officers done, I'm assuming those would all be suspended as well, correct?
Through the chair, yes. All the elements I listed before, if this motion is passed tonight, they would all be paused, suspended until the review is completed and we bring back the report in October 2020 to the trustees.
Okay. So, again, I know there's a lot of obviously passion and we don't want to have any student not feel safe in our schools or feel harassed or whatever's going on. And I absolutely support we need to get to the bottom of it and find out and make this a better program and work with our marginalized communities and work with our police to make this better. So I guess that's just, like I said, I still have pause to think about actually suspending a program that I still don't really know what the impact will be. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dees. Trustee Galindo, you've spoken. Trustee Miller.
Hi. Yes. So one, I did want to say that upon hearing everything that has been shared tonight, I fully support the amendment to my original motion. I did want to take a moment to thank student trustees Mehdi and Prozik for sharing their experiences, both the experiences that students are approaching you with. I'm sorry that you have to navigate that for students who don't feel like they have anyone else to share those encounters with. But in particular, student trustee Mehdi, I just want you to say thank you for sharing your truth as a racialized person. Sometimes when you are the only racialized person in a room, it can feel very difficult to be the ambassador for a lot of these very difficult conversations. So I wanted to acknowledge the bravery with which you spoke. I alluded to it in my original statement on the original motion. We paused the Black Mentorship Program at 2 of our high schools without any consultation at this table. We explicitly said that it was around issues of an unclear memorandum of understanding. And nobody had any discussion around whether or not we thought that some concerns were worthwhile taking programs that were showing very positive community engagement results from many of our students. So I'm just gonna put that out there because that's the reality of this work. We needed better and more clear understanding with one community partner. We sought that out. We achieved it. But the program was on pause for a full month. Many events were canceled. The launch at one of the schools was postponed. And it was very distressing for the students involved, particularly because it unfortunately came on the heels of them speaking out around these very core issues that we have here.
Sorry, Trustee Miller, you do need to speak directly to.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will keep on track. So I'm just going to leave that one there. I respect what Trustee Buck is, her concerns about whether or not, and as well Trustee D, whether or not we're going to be removing the good that is in the potential of this program has for many of our students. Those are very real questions. I do not, however, trust the Hamilton Police Services to conduct an appropriate review of their actions. I highlighted several of those points earlier today. I just don't think that they will be able to do a thorough reflection there. And I do want to consider here whether or not the benefits that some of my colleagues are hinting at is still worth trading potential harm to some of our other students. I really do think that if this were any other community partner, we would have, if we were having these kind of concerns come forward from our communities, across various communities, we would have suspended this program outright while under review. And I think that the director highlighted there will be an impact, but he also highlighted that some of that impact will actually be bringing this program more in line with our equity action plan, our dedication to the students who feel disconnected from our current structure. So I support the amendment to my motion. I do think we do need to take a pause on this program. And I will leave it there for the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. I did have Director Figueredo, I think, does want to, because there were some comments made, and there does need to be clarity. So, Director Figueredo.
So thank you through the chair. Trustee Maria Felix was accurate around the pausing of the program with HCCI did occur until we developed a memorandum of understanding. Fortunately, through the mediation with the Anti-Racism Directorate, because the program said it was paused for a month, the program only meets once a month, so there's 10 sessions at the school. But she is right, if we hadn't come to a new MOU, it could, the next session, which was scheduled, could have been delayed or missed, but we were fortunate enough to have the next session occur at Bernie Custis Secondary School, and it did slightly delay the startup at Sir Alan McNabb until we had a new MOU. But just a clarification that the program happens once a month in the School of the Black Youth Mentorship Program. I just wanted to clarify that piece, and she's correct around my action to pause that until we mediated it.
Okay. Okay. So, and Trustee Miller, that concluded your comments, or was
yes,
that?
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Trustee Danko.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you to my colleagues and Trustee Ahona, who have spoken very candidly and very honestly with the rest of us. I really appreciate that. I don't rule out the potential for canceling this program. However, like some other trustees have mentioned, we don't have all of the information to make this decision. And unfortunately, in the amendment, we haven't detailed what would happen at the end of October or the beginning of October. Would we reinsert the program automatically? So with the initial motion, I would expect that trustee action and motion would come out of the report and the data that we were expecting from staff. With the amendment, I don't have clarity around that, so that is a concern for me. I want to just look to what I've heard from the community through emails to me as a trustee. So some of the calls to the school board were to implement a community-run alternative to disciplinary action based on principles of restorative justice. There's also a statement saying there are plentiful alternatives to a police presence in schools, including mediators, trauma counselors, grief workers as a starting place. And others have said to carefully consider the commitments the Hamilton Police Services have made to address ongoing issues. So when I look at the calls to action, I appreciate that there is a call to cancel this program. I appreciate where that's coming from and that there is a desire to have no police in our schools. But what I don't see at this point, I don't see us ready to identify the gaps that it will create and to implement the alternatives to support our students. So I do struggle because I've also received input from families who have benefited from this program. And so I don't want to say that one should weigh out the other. I think we always want to reduce harm and to avoid harm to our students wherever possible. I do have a question for the director. Would staff need direction, or would they have the operational capability to adjust the MOU with Hamilton Police Services for the police liaison officer program to reduce the police presence in schools this fall until the report is done?
Director Figueredo.
So through the chair, just if I could ask Trustee Danko to ask that question again, just so I'm clear on what I heard, please.
Thank you. I was wondering if staff needs trustee direction, or like HCCI, where the MOU was reviewed and adjusted and then the program continued, can staff operationally adjust the MOU for the police liaison services or officer program to reduce officer presence in the school? Not eliminate it. We do have some specific things that they fill a function for, like fire drills or lockdown drills, like the restorative justice and diversion programming, like some of the duties we have to report. But could we not reduce the officer presence where possible, just operationally?
Yeah, so through the chair, so Trustee Danko's question, based on this motion, if passed, how I would interpret this is that the program would be paused until the review came. At that point, the review was completed. We bring the update, but operationally, through our equity action lens, we could change operationally some of the elements which we feel meet the needs or don't meet the needs of our students based on what we think aligns to our equity action plan. So clarity, if passed, then as this, when we bring the report back in October, my assumption is the pause would be lifted, and we would share with trustees, we would share as a monitoring update what the program is about, but operationally, that's what we do with other partners.
Thank you. And just to clarify a step further, if this motion were to fail, our staff, based on the evidence that you've heard from our students and the demands that you've heard from the community, are staff able to operationalize a reduction of police presence in schools through this program without trustee motion?
Yes, through the chair, we can if we feel there's elements in this police liaison program that we don't feel is meeting the needs or providing a positive community-based model. Yes, we could, without this motion, eliminate some of the elements of the program.
Thank you. So again, while I don't rule out the opportunity or the option of potentially canceling the program at this point, I have limited information about the potential overreaching impact across our entire system. I have limited information about the logistics of what this would look like and the gaps that might be created, as Trustee Deeth has mentioned, and how we would fill those gaps in the interim. So at this time, I appreciate where this is coming from and where this needs to go, but I can't support canceling the program at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Mulholland, did you come back on the line? No. Trustee Pagan-Miller.
Yes, I have a few comments and questions. First of all, it strikes me as unusual, or maybe the timing of it is unusual, when we just went through this anti-bullying panel and the need for one, and we lost a student in a school, and we were all tragically unhappy about that. And
sorry, Trustee.
Hello?
Sorry, Trustee Paikin-Miller, just because we do need to be speaking directly to...
I am speaking to it, Alex. Can you give me a minute to finish what I'm saying, please? Thank you. What I'm saying is, I would like an answer to the question of how the bullying panel situation is going to be impacted if we take police out of the schools, if we pause the police program, because I heard feedback in my community that police in the schools gives people a sense of at least the kids have someone that they can talk to if they need to. Now, I recognize and respect that Maria and a number of people and the Black community have a different experience of the police, and that has been said over and over. And I accept that and respect it, and I don't negate it or put it down. But I do think we need to be mindful of the opposite side of the coin. So I would like that question, if someone could answer that question. How is the bullying panel that we're working with going to be impacted by the idea of taking police presence out of the schools, even for a pause? So that's my question.
Thank you, Trustee Paikin-Miller. I'm not sure that staff can address that, but I will turn. Director Figueredo, are you able to provide any comments at all?
So through the chair, what I can say is that the review panel right now has provided some themes. The final recommendations are going to come in December that are evidence-based after they finish the consultation. Point of clarification, if this motion is passed around the police liaison program officers being removed, there will still be police presence in the school when required under certain legislations that we must adhere to, like the Youth Criminal Justice Act or a Safe Schools legislation or Ed Act or the Criminal Code. We'll still be working with our police under those pieces. So I just want that to be clarified, that if this does pass and is paused, it means that the police liaison officers won't be in the schools with their programs or the elements of their programs, but we would still have our other protocol to follow to have police in schools when required.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that response. I do agree with Becky, because I have had different comments made to me by parents that they feel safer with police in the schools. And I do feel that that side has to be looked at as well. And I have also a feeling of concern around the expulsions that we went through, where knives are brought into the school. I don't want to see kids unsafe because there is not sufficient police presence. So there's both sides, and I recognize that, but I just don't think I can support the amendment at this time. Now, who knows, down the road, once we get more information from the review, that may change, and I expect that it could very well change. But at this time, I don't think the program should be paused. That's how I feel. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. We have Student Trustee Meddy.
Yeah, so I want to be really clear about this. From the original motion, I think that a suspension would be an improvement. And if I'm able to suggest my own amendment, I will touch on this further. But also for those who believe a lack of police presence in schools could be dangerous, even if that is what you believe, this wouldn't be relevant right now, considering the distance learning format and the fact that students are not currently in schools. So a suspension right now would actually, it would actually make sense because there are no police and there are no students in schools right now. But I have to say that a suspension is not enough. And I'm fearful that after the review is conducted, because of the nature of the Hamilton Police Services, this program will resume exactly as it was. And our Black and racialized community is demanding a termination of this program because of the endangerment of Black and racialized lives. And they're asking for investigation into the data surrounding police interactions with students, which has not been collected and publicly released for accountability. And past and current students who are racialized have shared negative interactions with police, not just recently and not just during school closures, but for years. And if trustees do need more insight into this, I'll be happy to connect later about it. But our policy and our procedure do not match the practices that students are experiencing in schools, and this is something that does need to be addressed. So with this, I hope that I'll be able to move forward my amendment, which is, in short, to terminate the program, collect and publicly release data of police interactions with students, and move forward with community-based restorative justice programming. But because a suspension is an improvement, I want to address that, but I also need to address the fact that that's not what the racialized community is asking for, and the fact that it's not enough, when there is no guarantee that this program, which is endangering our racialized students, has the risk, like, that this program that is endangering the lives of our racialized students, it could possibly presume as normal and continue to harm our students.
Thank you. Student Trustee Prozic.
Thanks. And through the chair, I'd just like to start by making it unequivocally clear that the suspension that I have recommended on this program is in no way a reflection of how the program has performed. I am not saying that the police and schools have done bad work or good work. What I am saying is what we do know is that in light of these events, students are feeling uncomfortable by the police presence in schools. That is a fact. We also know that students have reached out to us saying that they feel they have previously felt harassed, like they have been carded and unfairly targeted by the police presence in the schools. That's a fact. Now, on the other hand, trustees have also, been reached out to and saying, well, yes, that happens, but also, a police presence makes a lot of students feel safer. And that is also a fact. I'm sure a lot of students do feel safer, but what we cannot compare is an increase in feeling safe to straight up harassment. If students are feeling harassed in our schools, we should be taking immediate action on that. Let me also say that this is, as Trustee Galindo had mentioned, a mostly symbolic gesture. Schools are not in session right now, which means the impact will be minimal for the months of September and October. And let me also clarify that, through my experience at Bernie Custis Secondary School, the police liaison officer has only been in once or twice a week. And that is the nature of the program, is that they come in for visits and they don't necessarily know what to do, so they just kind of hang out with the vice principal in fulfilling their duties. Now, we cannot compare an increase in feeling safe to students feeling harassed, bullied, and unjustly targeted by these police officers. So I would just like trustees around the table to take a moment to see what this is. This is standing in solidarity with our Black community and our Black students and racialized students who feel uncomfortable by police officers in light of these events. A police officer knelt on George Floyd's neck for 7 minutes straight, over 7 minutes. Students feel, I can't even describe how students feel about this. I can't even describe how the world feels about this right now. This should be a pretty straightforward motion. This is solidarity. This is saying we recognize that due to these events, you now feel uncomfortable by a police presence. And until we can evaluate and promise to our students that we have a positive police presence in our schools, we should not have police officers in our schools frequently just as muscle for our principals and vice principals. Now, I completely understand where concerns I've heard around the table from the possibility of, suspending the relationship. Let me also clarify that in no way does this motion or this amendment to the motion suspend the relationship between our school board and the police service. In fact, I think this should be a time to strengthen that relationship, to really communicate and have an open line of communication with our school board and the police service as to how we can better this program. So in no way is the suspension of the relationship, are we saying that cops aren't allowed in our schools? Nothing like that. We are just saying that the police liaison program has previously made students feel uncomfortable, unjustly targeted, harassed, targeted, and a plethora of other reasons. So we are going to take action now, suspend the program, and protect our students now. I just hope that trustees around the table can take a step back and realize what's going on here. Because it's not a question of, we've heard, that students feel more safe in schools, so we're going to take those students' needs more seriously than these students feeling harassed. This was a difficult thing for me to propose as well. In fact, I have had a positive experience with the police in our schools. I've had a very positive experience. But there are students who haven't. In fact, they have felt unsafe in their school environment because of police in schools. We need to realize that we don't have the lived experiences of these students. We are not in these schools as trustees. We don't know what happens in these schools. It is so important for us to take a step back and recognize our privilege around the table. I have white privilege. I have never experienced racial discrimination in my life. But when a racialized person reaches out to me and says, I'm being unfairly targeted by the police, until I know that they're not being targeted by the police, I would not want police in my schools. We don't know whether or not this is happening. Exactly. There's so many we don't knows in this that we should be prioritizing student safety. We should be prioritizing our students' well-being and their comfortability in our schools. Once again, I'm not saying this as a direct reflection on the Hamilton Police Services or the Police Liaison Program. This is just from students reaching out to us and saying for a plea of help. Hona and I have had students reaching out to us this entire time asking for a review and suspension of this program and termination of this program. The least we can do is say, we hear you. We will remove these police officers from the school as a board. And until we can prove, or until we know, and until we have feedback on how these police officers interact with these students, we will not have them in our schools other than for things like drug presentations. And like Trustee Archer had mentioned, Trustee Deese had mentioned, these sexting presentations. These are not, police liaison program exclusives. Principals can still invite police to the schools for these programs. What we are saying, though, is that the lived experience of these students has been police liaisons have harassed them. And you cannot discredit that. No one around this table can discredit those lived experiences. So I just sincerely hope that trustees can take a step back and really just evaluate the situation from a lens of protecting our students and standing in solidarity with our community. Because these world events have brought distrust in the name of policing everywhere, and it's made me very sad. In fact, I stand with our Hamilton Police Services. I stand with police services across the world who are trying to do good work. But what we know is that there are police who haven't done good work. What we also know is that there's been a plea for help from our students, and we need to answer that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Trustee Prozic. Have I missed anyone on the list before I speak? And I'll go to the motioner or the mover of the motion in the end. But just I don't think I've missed anyone. But trustees, have I missed anyone? Okay. So I want to start out by acknowledging how emotionally charged this conversation is on all sides. And I know that I've heard a lot certainly trustees have received a number of emails over the last 24 hours calling for the cancellation of the police liaison program. We have all been impacted by world events, and both
here in Ontario, across Canada, in the United States, and around the world. And I think that at the same time, I know that there's also been a huge voice within our community as well while we were conducting the bullying review, calling for a greater police presence. And I don't like that the conversation has come to an area where I feel like we're having to choose between students, because that's where this is coming down to. We have students who feel safe when they do not feel safe when we have police in schools, and we have students who do not feel safe when they are gone. And as I've heard the conversation take place tonight, one thing that has become very clear is that trustees are not fully clear around what the program looks like, how it plays out in our schools, and I realize a lot of that information would normally come through a review. At the same time, we have students who are saying that any police officer entering the school is having an impact on them. I believe that it is our responsibility as leaders in education to meet the needs of all students. And how do you do that when you have two very different groups of students and parents who are certainly watching and listening tonight who are asking for different things? And that's where it's up to us as a school board to address that. I think part of that is in the work as we undergo the review. I have asked staff, is there any way that we can have this done by September? Because the question is not so much now. The police are not in our schools right now at this moment. No one is. Our students are not in our schools. The question is September, October. And it's 2 months. But students should not be made to feel unsafe either way. So where I want to know is that can we have a compromise where we have a strict and significant reduction of the program. I would not be comfortable with suspending the entire program at this time. And I think that's mainly because I do not know what the full impact would be. And I feel that for this conversation tonight, I do not feel that that I'm working with facts. I feel that I am working with I feel that I don't have full facts right now. So that's where there's been many questions tonight around what would the impact be if we suspended the program. I'm not concerned about losing programs to the Catholic School Board or other, I guess there's 3 other school boards, Catholic, English and English French, and public French. I'm not concerned about that. I am concerned about it's the perception of safety for our students, for those who feel safe with and those who feel safe, who do not feel safe. And that is where I would support a significant reduction in service. As far as I'm concerned, there's no need for that. I guess programs on say cyber bullying or whatnot, that doesn't necessarily need to be offered by a police officer in the months of September or October. However, performing those drills, I'm not sure what that entails. And I feel like I'm being asked to make a decision where I don't fully know the facts. So at this point, without all the facts in front of me, I would support a significant reduction of police entering our schools.
that it should not be and it really should not be unless it's absolutely required. And it should be that my guess is that we'll hear a lot about what the expectations are of the program. But at this point, I wouldn't be, wouldn't be able to support a full suspension without knowing the full facts. So that is where I land. So with that, we will go to a vote, and I will do a full roll call. Oh, sorry, I will go to Paul Tutt for a closing statement, and then we'll go to a roll call. Trustee Tutt? Trustee Tutt, you're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can now.
Hi, sorry about that. Thanks, Madam Chair. Just wanted to say, thank everyone for their comments around the table. A lot of it is pretty consistent with wanting the facts. And I think everybody's in agreement about having the full facts of the program. But I think student trustees both clearly had indicated that the only facts that should matter at this point is the voices of the students, who primarily it's our job to represent, and that's the population that we serve, in addition to their parents and the community. But that's who's raising a voice here. And we can't even do the minimum, right? The minimum is just suspending the program and completing a review. That's the piece that's extremely shocking and hurtful. But everybody, we live in a democracy, and that's the beautiful thing about living in a country where we can exercise a democratic right. Everybody can have their say. But at the end of the day, if you leave, I think Chair Johnstone had said that, it's an emotionally charged conversation. And yes, it is. But if you go back to my earlier statements that I led with, leave the emotion aside for a moment, completely aside. Just follow what we've done in the past. I'm asking trustees to be consistent with what we've done. Trustee Miller has also hit that point as well tonight. If we do what we've always done, that'll lead you to the answer, and that's to suspend the program and allow staff to complete that review. You know it's the right thing to do. It's what we've done in the past. And doing anything in contrary to that would be hypocritical of this board. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go to the vote now. So to the amended motion is to suspend the program while there is a review. Trustee Archer. Sorry, I will, just because I think for this, because, hold on, one moment, please. So I am going to go through roll call, and if you can just indicate if you're voting for or against. Trustee Art, are you voting for or against the amended motion to suspend the program?
Can you hear me? My button's stuck. Can you hear me? Against.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, against.
So the amended motion is to suspend the program, Police Liaison program, while a review is being conducted. So it would be suspended until the end of October.
No, I don't agree with that. I'm going to vote for the first motion.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Bingham. Sorry, Trustee Bingham, I think you were on mute.
Yes, I was on mute. Yes.
for or against?
I'm right down the middle on it. I'm going to abstain on that.
Okay. Trustee Buck?
Against.
Trustee Danko?
Against.
Trustee Deeth?
Against.
Trustee Galindo?
I'm for the motion.
Trustee Miller?
I am for the amendment.
Trustee Tutt?
I am for the amendment.
Student Trustee Meddy?
I'm for the amendment as well.
Trustee Prozic?
For the amendment.
And I am voting against. Oh, Trustee Carol Mulholland? Sorry, my apologies. Trustee Carol Paikin-Miller?
Against.
The motion
Hello?
fails.
Okay.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay.
The motion fails. We have student. Just one moment, please. Sorry. Okay, so student trustee Meddy has put, asking to put a motion on the floor to cancel the program entirely. Do we have a trustee that will just make sure everybody is on mute? So please, do we have someone who will put that, motion on the floor?
Sorry, Alex, it's Trustee Miller.
Yep.
I'm not currently sure if I'm able to support that. If I am, I will. If I am not, then I cannot, obviously.
Okay. We'll turn to Heather Miller for guidance and governance.
So I just need to clarify if the student trustee could possibly read what her amendment would be so that we are all clear.
For sure, yeah.
Thank you.
So I would, what my amendment would be that the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board fully terminate the Hamilton Police/School Board protocol implemented in 2016, refrain from involving police in student-related school-based incidents requiring disciplinary action, and compile, investigate, and publicly release documentation of past, present, and future student-related interactions with Hamilton Police Services through adoption of intersectional data collection, including race, gender, disability, and other marginalized identities, and implement a student-centered, community-based alternative to disciplinary action with a focus on independent community partnerships, highly racialized and intersectional schools, further expansion of HWDSB's principles of restorative justice, and practices and policies that are put in place allowing for the creation of an independent review or complaint body that examines and holds the board accountable to the new processes created.
Thank you. So that's not an amendment. That's actually a brand new motion.
Yeah.
So with that, what we would do is we would continue and have the vote on the original motion. If the original motion fails, at that point, we would, Heather Miller, if you could just clarify, would we entertain another motion immediately after and move on to the next agenda item, or would we require a written notice of motion?
You would require a written notice of motion. Once this item is completed, you would move on to the next agenda item.
Okay. So I'm sorry, student trustee Meddy, but
if the main motion does not pass tonight, then it would be a new motion, and that would be it would need to be a written notice motion.
Okay, so
Okay.
I would be able to submit that for the next board meeting?
If only if this motion fails, if I'm correct. Is that correct?
Okay.
Heather Miller?
Not through the chair. The student trustee would have a mover that
Right.
would work with her, but she still could submit a written notice of motion at the next board meeting, which is set up for June 22nd.
Okay, all right. Student trustee Meddy, you can certainly work with trustee liaison officer Miller tomorrow. And it sounds so weird saying her trustee liaison officer Miller's title in this context, but that is her title. So with that, you can certainly work with her tomorrow on putting together a written notice of motion. You would need to have a mover, okay? And it sounds like you may have one. Okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, so trustees, to the main motion, the main motion is to undergo a review of the trustee liaison officer program. And I will go through roll call on that.
Alex, just a point of clarification. You mean the school liaison officer program, correct?
Yes, with the school. Sorry, it is 9:41 at night. So thank you. So this is to do to the main motion, the motion that was written and is in your board packages, provided by Trustee Miller, that HWDSB complete a review of the trustee of the school liaison officer program and report back in October. So I'll go through roll call, and if you can just say that if you're voting for or against. Trustee Archer. And you're on mute, Trustee Archer.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. I am for the motion for a review of the, yes. I'm for the motion. It's a review.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Bingham.
For the motion.
Trustee Buck.
For the motion.
Trustee Danko.
For the motion.
Trustee Deese.
For the motion.
Trustee Galindo.
I support the motion.
Trustee Miller.
I support the motion.
Trustee Mulholland has left. Trustee Paikin-Miller. I think you're on mute.
I pushed the wrong thing. I'm for the review. That's my position.
Trustee Tutt.
In favor.
Student Trustee Meddy.
I support.
Student Trustee Prozic.
In favor, thanks.
Thank you. And I am voting for as well. The motion passes unanimously with Trustee Mulholland out of the room. With that, we will now move on to, we'll now move on to the next agenda item. Please give me one moment. And the next agenda item is oral reports from liaison committees. I have no report for the City School Board Liaison Committee as we have not met. Moving along to item B, Hamilton Wentworth Home and School Association, and looking to Trustee Galindo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just getting myself organized again after that debate. I apologize. Okay, here we go. The Hamilton Wentworth Home and School Association had their annual general meeting electronically through Zoom. That was on May 21st, 2020. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. Neither was my colleague, Trustee Danko. However, that's actually all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Hamilton Foundation for Student Success, Trustee Pagan-Miller.
Yes, here I am. Can you hear me? Am I on mute or?
No, you are live. We can hear you.
Oh, I'm live. Okay. All right. The Heritage Green Community Trust has approved a grant of $32,400 to support the revitalization of the Learning Commons at Gatestone Elementary School. Gatestone's principal, Kelly Riley Scott, and the Foundation's executive director, Amy Leeming-Cote, had the opportunity to provide a brief overview of the project and offer thanks to Heritage Green Community Trust at their virtual annual general meeting on May the 25th, 2020. 11 student sponsorships were also presented during the AGM, with 5 being awarded to students from Saltfleet Secondary School. Donations to the COVID-19 Relief Fund have supported HWDSB students' distance learning through the purchase of 170 Internet-equipped iPads, which were distributed to students whose families did not have Internet access. Schools are also turning $37,000 in nutrition dollars gifted to the COVID-19 Relief Fund into approximately 740 gift cards for families in need. And finally, the uncertainty of what is to come, coupled with what will be a challenging summer for many students and their families, has the Foundation examining ways to ensure that it is prepared to respond. To meet this anticipated increase in individual student needs, the Foundation will be placing special importance on its student support grants in 2020 and 2021. So with that, I move the report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Hearing none, I will move to my OPSPA report. So OPSPA did meet electronically on May 23rd. We were joined by Minister Lecce, and we had, I guess, some of the updates. I'll give more recent updates have included the emergency order has, of course, been extended until June 30th. As of today, Phase 2 was announced and will be starting Friday through a regional approach. So different services will begin to reopen as per the Phase 2, but depends on the region that you are in. We were told that GSNs will be coming soon. We were told that guidelines for school reopenings will be coming in approximately 2 weeks. We were told that we will be receiving communication later this week on child care centers reopening. We were also told that for the care for our child care centers, that there would be routine testing taking place for, child care workers as well as educators, although we have not received an update on what that would look like. We also learned that Ontarians can now be tested at assessment centers, and that 130 assessment centers were available across the province, and that you would no longer need a referral in order to go and get yourself tested. For school bus operations, we were told that Transportation Canada has struck a committee on safety, and that they will issue a separate guidelines on shields and enclosures. And again, that information is still to come to school boards. And that completes my OPSPA report. Is there any questions? Hearing none, so motion to adjourn will be made, of course, by Trustee Tutt, and we'll have that seconded by Trustee Bingham. Is anyone against a motion to adjourn? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, and that completes our meeting. Thank you, trustees.
Left.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Left.
Carol Taken Miller.
Thank you all so much.
Left. Left.
Trustee Cam Glenn.
Left.
Alex Johnstone.
Left.
Jamie Nunn.